guys, how are you doing? It's your boy Dave Partner. Today we are going to be building a blog with Ethereum blockchain, which means we're going to be covering the CRUD, C-R-U-D, okay, of building dApps with Ethereum. First thing you have to do is to subscribe. I'll give you 3 seconds to hit the subscribe button below and turn on the notifications and set it to all, and then share this video. So click the share button or just copy the URL and share to somewhere. Alright, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, whatever. Okay, so go ahead and do that while we start working with our blog. Okay, so I'm giving you 3 seconds. So now that you've done that, make sure you drop a comment in the comment section below to say that you are enthusiastic about taking this course. Alright, so I usually start from here whenever building dApps or teaching how to build dApps, which is showing you what the entire pipeline looks like. Okay, now you need to know that some of the explanations I'm going to give here are not perfect, okay, because I'm trying to explain it in a layman's terms. Now when you're building your regular application or website or mobile app, you usually have a front end where you have something like Bootstrap, Tailwind, Foundation UI, Material Design, whatever it is that beautifies your front end. Okay, this is where you have CSS and HTML. Then you have a back end, usually a language, a backend language or a framework. This is where you have your Node.js, Express, Laravel, Django, React Native, Ionic, Flutter. So these things are connected to the front end, and usually in your regular app, this back end will connect straight to the database. Okay, but in blockchain and dApp development, this backend has to connect to a library called Web3. Okay, Web3.js. Basically, it's just a library that consumes something called Solidity. In Ethereum programming, Solidity is the language that is used to interact with your blockchain. So in regular software development, that would be the equivalent of MySQL, your SQL code. Alright, so that's the equivalent of Solidity. So in Solidity, you write code that is used to interact with your blockchain. Okay, our blockchain in this scenario is Ethereum blockchain. Alright, so Solidity is an Ethereum specific language, but also it may be able to work in Binance Smart Chain. Okay, now there is MetaMask and Ganache. You know, usually when you're building your regular applications, let's say PHP for instance, you need to run a local server. Okay, so MetaMask and Ganache helps you to run that local server. The local server connects to your local database until you're done with your development, then you push to live. So MetaMask Ganache can help you to connect to a local database of Ethereum blockchain, local one, and then MetaMask can also help you to connect to a live Ethereum blockchain. Okay, alright, so this tutorial will somehow touch all of this. Okay, we're trying to build a blog, okay, using Ethereum, and at the end of the day, it's gonna explain to you how everything works. So we're going to also use React for the front end here. We use Bootstrap here, use React here, and then that's how we're going to do it. So it doesn't matter if you've never coded React. So this is a complete beginner's tutorial. So if you've never actually ever written anything with React, it's perfectly fine. Okay, just come along. I will not do anything incredibly complex. Okay, the first thing is to install, to be able to use React, you have to first install Node.js. Okay, so here we'll type Node.js. Just visit the website here, nodejs.org. Now another interesting thing is even before you install Node.js, you need something called a Node version manager. So basically, this is a command line tool that helps you to install multiple versions of Node.js. Because if you're watching this from the future, what you would have noticed is that the Node.js version has changed. Okay, it may not be 17 again, it might be something like 18, 19. So when you're trying to install React or any JavaScript framework, there's usually this bunch of errors that you see on the screen mostly because the Node.js you are using is ahead of time, okay, ahead of the platform you're trying to install. So it's usually okay to have 2 versions of Node.js at least, so that if you meet errors installing React on one, you just use Node Version Manager to switch back. So let's install Node Version Manager. So we go to Google and type Node Version Manager, and the very first link is on GitHub. Okay, you click on it, it takes you. In case you don't know, I'm using a Mac, okay, system, but it doesn't matter which other system you're using, whether you're using Windows or whatever. If you come to this place, you see that there is an installation and update. Okay, so you click on this. Now, if you are using Windows, read this so that you can access it using this other link. But if you're using Mac, you can just copy this, click on this to copy, and then run it on your command line. Okay, if you have wget installed in your Mac or Linux, you can use that instead. All right. So just read through this. Make sure you set up your Node Version Manager properly. But usually this should do the trick. So this is what I mean by command line. This, all right. Open your command line, and then you paste, then you run. Okay. See, I already have it installed. Okay. It's complaining. So this is how you know that Node Version Manager is installed. So after installation, make sure you close your command line, close it, and restart it again. Okay. Reopen it. And then you type nvm-v, that's Node Version Manager version. So this gives me the version of Node Version Manager I have. But it also gives me interesting things. For instance, Node Version Manager can show you, this is what you can do with it. You can switch between node versions. So if you do nvm use 16, it's going to switch to this node version 16 that you have. If you say use 14, to switch to 14. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be using Node 14. Okay. So if you want to install a new version of Node, you can just write nvm install 12 instead of going to the Node.js website here. So instead of going to this Node.js website, okay. So hope we're good. There is a Node.js website here. So instead of coming here to install, you can always install from the command line. Okay, so now we have it done. So I can do nvm node v. I already have Node installed, so it shows me that I'm using Node 17, Node.js 17, which is this. It's too advanced for what I want to do. I want to downgrade to 14, so I'll do nvm use 14. If I don't already have 14, what I can do is nvm install 14. Okay, so it has now switched to 14 and we're good to go. So the next thing we're going to do is to install React. So you go to your browser here and you type reactjs.org. And if you're watching this from the future, what you would have noticed is that the version of React must have advanced a little. So here, this is the current version of React that I'm using, React version 17.02. And as a programmer, if you ever notice any changes, just Google it and you'll be able to adjust towards it. But I don't think there will be much changes for the next 2 years or 3 years at least. Okay, so here we're good. You click on Docs. We just want to see how to install React. So for some weird reason, they hid the link somewhere. So if you scroll down to see Create React App, click on Learn how to create React App. Remember that if you're coming from the future, this whole page would have been redesigned. So if we scroll down, we see how to create React App. Now what you notice here is that it's saying that you must use Node 14 or above, okay, for this to work. Remember that we switched to Node 14 and that's perfect. So I'll copy this. This is how to create a new React app, and this is the name of the app, alright? So I'll copy this. And what are we going to call our app? DApp. We're going to create DApp blog, whatever. So I'm going to paste this. Okay, and then run it. But first of all, I want to run it in a folder where I keep all my apps. So let me find the folder. I'll do present working directory. Okay, pwd, hit enter, and it shows me that I'm in users Mac. I'll do ls. You don't really need to do this, but if you are using Mac, this is a folder I created, okay? A special folder I created it. I called it projects. I created it under users Mac, okay? So that this is where I dump all my projects. So I will just go to cd projects. Now, if you are using Mac and you don't have projects folder, it's fine, but you can also create a project folder here. Make directory. If you do mkdir projects, it's going to create it, okay? And then you have to enter into the project cd projects, and I'm inside projects folder. All right, and your own might be called something else. I don't care. All right, you can even be doing it inside your documents folder or whatever. I don't care. All right, so here we're inside projects folder. We can now run this command. All right, I just want to be able to find my apps whenever I want. That's why I have them all in the folder. So I'll right click, paste, and then instead of the app, I can call it blog dApp. Okay, dApp stands for decentralized applications. Hit enter. Make sure you have your internet connection, and wait a few seconds. It's going to install React for you, and then the next thing we're going to do after that is to run this. Okay. Congratulations, we have completed the very first task. This is a good moment for you to like, subscribe, and share this video, okay, in the comment section below. Now we have cd blog dApp, okay, and yarn start. In case you don't know, we have a what do you call it, a Telegram group. Okay, I'll put the link in the description section below. Click it and join our Telegram group, our blockchain classroom on Telegram. Okay, it's absolutely free. So it's telling us that we have to do cd blog dApp. Okay, this is to enter into our blog dApp folder. Okay, so I'll do cd blog dApp. So this positions this terminal into our blog dApp folder. Now it's time to start the blog. Okay, so if you have yarn, you type yarn start. If you have npm, you type npm start. So I have npm, type npm start. Now this would attempt to open my browser and run React. Okay, if you did everything correctly, it's not going to throw an error here, but if you're having a wrong node version, it will not get to this point. Okay, you're going to see an error. Just make sure that you install the right node version. I used node 14. If you're coming after node 17, you can try node 15 or node 16. Alright, so it opened my browser by itself. I did not touch it, and it's loading something. Look at this. So I'm just going to give it a few seconds, and it will load the React app for me. Interesting thing is, you see, here is the interesting thing. It has created the React app. Now another thing I want to do is to open this React app on my system and start working on it. Okay. Anytime you want to visit your React app, look at the server. Look at this on my browser. Localhost :3000, that's what it spawned here. Localhost :3000, that's how to run my React. Okay, and every time I edit my code, it will automatically refresh itself. That's what this is doing. Alright, so this is just a terminal that it has taken over my terminal. I'm using it as a server. So if I want to run any other thing in the terminal, I have to create a new tab. So I'll press Command T on my keyboard, Command T. See, now I have two tabs. Okay, now I can start working on this. All right. Now, if you do that, make sure that you are still in the same inside the same blog dApp. If you're not sure where you are, you type pwd. So make sure that you are. Look at where I am inside my blog dApp. Okay. Now, if you're on Windows, probably this Command T may not be able to work. Okay, just start a new terminal and navigate to this place where you are, where you put your app. Now, the next thing I want to do is to open my Visual Studio. Make sure you have Visual Studio editor. So I'll go to download Visual Studio editor. If you are better with Sublime Text, fine, but I use Visual Studio. So just come here and download Visual Studio. It's an editor, right? So we're back. Once you download Visual Studio, open Visual Studio, open this blog dApp on Visual Studio. I have this shortcut that I use okay, code dots. That's what if you do this, it's gonna spin Visual Studio for this. Okay, it did not work, so I'm gonna set it up. I'll set Visual Studio up to work with code. Our Visual Studio app has a page, download page has opened, so accept all cookies, as if you had any other option, and then download. If you are using Windows or Mac, whatever, just download for your version. Now the next thing I want to do is that the code does not work, so I'm just gonna do code not working for Visual Studio Code on Mac. So basically, Google is gonna show me the way. Here's an interesting solution. If you look here, if you're using Mac, of course, I'm using Mac. It says make sure you drag this, which is already done. Next, open Visual Studio Code, okay, and type Shift Command P. All right. I know why I'm showing you through this, because many people get frustrated just trying to set up React. Okay, so we're going to go here and type VS Code. Visuals. Yeah. I think that's the problem. It was never dragged here. I think that's the problem. I didn't have it inside this Mac. So what we're going to do is get back here. It says open Visual Studio Code. I open it here. Fine, and it says in the shell command, okay, I'll type this to open shell command, and I'll type shell command. Alright, so here Shift Command P, type shell command, you see. So this is what it told me to type, shell command. So install code, update, use uninstall code command. Okay, so I have to do Shift Command P. We'll do the uninstall. I've done it before, that's why you're seeing it here. You just have to type shell command first, so you can see it. So I'll uninstall first. Say okay, and then Shift Command P, then I'll install. Okay, so now it's done. I expect this to work. So if I do code, usually you have to restart your server, of course. What you have to do is do Ctrl T to open a new tab, and once that tab is opened on your terminal, you just type, make sure that you are inside that. Okay, once you're inside that, you type code. For some weird reason, ZSH. So I just type ZSH in my own specific scenario, so I can now do code. Okay, so otherwise just manually open Visual Studio Code. This is what I wanted to achieve. So basically we're there now. We now have all this. All right. So let's look at this. This is the default that comes with it. So if you look at app.js, this is our React app. You will see here that React says edit app.js and save to reload. So if you come here, you come to the React app, you see that it says edit app.js, src app.js. So that's the file we're working with now. Alright, so basically we'll take it out. I've deleted the whole line and say welcome to that. Ctrl S, save. It will automatically reload. You see, welcome to adapt. Alright, so congratulations on completing the installation of React. That's level 2 passed. Let's go to level 3. Alright, so right here, remember this chart that we had here. We have that we installed this Bootstrap. So let's try that. npm. So there's something called React Bootstrap. Okay, that's basically Bootstrap that is customized specifically for React. Okay, so React Bootstrap. So somebody took Bootstrap and customized it specifically for React. So if you come here, you will see how to install it. I like to show in my tutorials how I got to where I am instead of doing some special magic that is confusing, which most people do for some weird reason. Most people that teach on YouTube, they just run commands without showing you how they found it. So here you have npm install React Bootstrap. Now, if you want to install the latest one, which I usually do, you would skip at 5.13 or whatever. So npm install React Bootstrap, come to your command line, and then right-click paste, npm install React Bootstrap. Okay, another thing we have to install is Web3.js. Remember that we said once we've already done this, which is installing React and Node.js, and then we are doing this now, which is installing at least one of these, which is React Bootstrap. The next thing we want to install is Web3.js. All right, so we go to Web3.js. Okay, Web3.js dot read the docs.io, but generally I'll just type Web3.js documentation on Google. Just type it, and boom, brings it here. So basically, we're gonna look for the command for installing Web3.js. I know it offhand, but I just want to show you how I got it. Okay, got it to installing and running Web3.js. Okay, basically we are looking for npm install Web3. All right, good. So come to our command prompt. This is still installing, so I'm just gonna pause this video for a few seconds. Once the installation of Bootstrap is done, make sure that this Bootstrap is being installed inside your dApp. Okay, make sure it's installed inside your dApp. That's where all this code is running. All right. Usually you are going to see all these 103 packages, vulnerabilities, and whatever. It's okay as long as you don't see error. So here now I'm going to click paste and npm install Web3. Hit enter. And Web3 is being installed. All right, we just finished running npm. All right, so we now have Web3 installed. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now the next thing is to restart our server. So I'm just gonna close this. We want to restart our server. Remember, we had a terminal on that is running our server. So I'll press Ctrl+C. That it stops the server. All right. How you know that the server is stopped is if we come back to our website and right click here, and what you're going to see is that it's gone, stopped. Okay, so we come back here, and then we do npm start. It can only work if you're inside your blocked app. Always cross check. Okay, and it has restarted. Now we have Web3, and it's still starting though. So once it has started, this page will load again, and of course it will open another page for me. All right, we are almost live. It is still starting. Guys, the very next thing is to go to our package.json and confirm that everything is installed properly. So look at this. Go to package.json, and what we're looking for are the three things that we just installed. We installed React Bootstrap. Look at it, it's installed properly. And we also look at Bootstrap. See, it's installed. Okay, look at Web3. Web3 is installed. Okay, so we're good. Now the next thing is go to our app.js. Okay, and import React Bootstrap. So how did I get it? Go to React Bootstrap website. Okay, on the website of React Bootstrap, you will notice that now if you are using something that is not React, remember that there's CDN. You can just copy this and place at the head section of your HTML, and it's the same thing with all the running npm install. But right here, it's telling us how to import the CSS. So we're just going to copy this and paste in the app. Paste here. Okay. Now we also don't really need this logo.svg. This is it. That's the logo that shows up when our React page loads. Here, this logo, we don't need it. We're just going to get rid of it. Okay. So we don't need this, and we don't need this logo. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so the whole of this, we can just let go of the whole of this, and change this to container. If you know Bootstrap at all, you know what container does. It kind of helps us scan up the page. If I say headline, hello world of products. Okay. So I think a more correct phrase would be hello world. So that is D for decentralized. That's where we are now. Now, one thing you notice about this design is look at this. Because we did container, it's giving us a nice margin here. So if we remove this Bootstrap CSS, if we remove it, save, okay, and what you notice is, you see, it's no longer having Bootstrap. Okay, just in case you're wondering why your Bootstrap is not showing, it is because your CSS was not imported properly. Okay, save. Now, first thing you notice is that here, this is running function, but we want to change it to a class. Okay, why do I want to change it to a class? Because I can. Most importantly, it's easier for me that way personally, building React apps that way. Okay, now if you're a React Ninja, you already know what to do from here. You can go ahead with function. Now, if you come to React documentation, where is it? React.js.org, on the documentation, they have a section that explains how to convert a function to a class. So if you go to click Get Started, okay, and we go to where is it? Main concepts. Okay, state and lifecycle. Okay, state and lifecycle. It has a section that says converting a function to a class. Okay, converting a function to a class. So they explained here, they said you have to create a class with the same name that extends React component. Okay, so here we're going to, instead of function, we're going to say class. Okay, app extends React.component. Now you need to know that previous versions of React would have something like, I'm working on React 17, okay, previous version would have other ways to do things, and future versions will have slightly other ways to do things. So this is not essential, it's not critical. So if your React app.js is not looking like this, it's perfectly fine. Try and figure out a way, okay, and just finish this section of this video and see whether there's a way to implement what I'm doing now in your own future version. All right, so now we've implemented, we have to do render. Okay, and make sure everything here. So that's basically what it says. I'm just going to move this right. Okay. Basically, it says create a class with the same name, add a single empty method called render. That's what I just did. Move the body of the function into the render method. Replace props and with these props in the render. Okay, so if you ever see a place where we're going to use props, then we replace it with this.props. Okay, delete the remaining empty function. We just did that. Okay, so let's just confirm that what we did just worked. Okay, so here you see we're still there. So if I do reload, it's still working perfectly fine. All right, congratulations on completing this step 3 of your DApp tutorial. Yes, let's make a connection to the database. Still on the Web3 page, on the installation page, where we saw the npm install Web3. We've already run that. Now, we want to make a connection to the database. All right. Now we've not set up the database, but this is how to make the connection. Okay. So they have already given us that if we're using any Node.js based application, that this is exactly how we are going to make that connection. Okay. So first of all, we said we have to import Web3. Okay, we have to in Node.js it says const Web3 equals to Web3, but there's another way we can do that. So let's go to our code. So we make sure that Web3 is available in our page. For some weird reason, my Visual Studio Code is not good enough. Guys, the first thing we're going to do is to import the Web3. Remember, we installed it. So what we're going to do here is import capital letter WE Web3 from small letter WE3. Okay. I already showed you there's another way to define it. Okay, and that is said in the docs. The docs mentioned a slightly different way. If you use that method in the docs, you might get errors, which are very resolvable. You should get used to seeing errors when you are running any Node.js based application. Okay. So now we've converted this to a class. We're going to make a database connection. Make database connection. Okay. Instead of database, I'm going to call it blockchain connection. So let's create a function. Now this is a connection that is going to be asynchronous. All right. So we're going to make a request. We wait a little. The blockchain will reply. All right. So because of that wait, we're going to use a JavaScript special kind of function called async. Async. We can say load blockchain or connect. This is async. Connect. Okay. Alright, I tried to increase the font size. Okay, so connect to blockchain. So I just created this function out of thin air. But the key thing to know about this is the async here, so which means we're going to use the word wait, the keyword wait somewhere in the function. Now, what is the first thing we do with respect to async? We have to go to Web3 website. They have already given us a way to make a call to a database. So if you look at here in the installation page, remember where we did npm install and on how to install. Let me show you the website. On Web3, I'm on Web3 website. So here, they're telling us how to establish the first connection. So we're just going to copy the whole line. Alright, get back to our precious code, and then paste it here, verbatim. Okay. The only thing you have to take note of is the port to the database you're connecting. So depending on the database, the port might be different. So we're going to cross-check that later, but let's leave this exactly the way it is. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is let's see whether this connection worked. So we'll do const network. Okay, equal to await. Now we just want to pull the number of accounts that we have on our network, or which is on our blockchain. Remember that we've not set up the blockchain. I'm going to show you how to set it up. So we'll do web3 .f .request accounts. Okay. Now we do console.log. So we can just print this network here, or we call it accounts. You can print accounts, whatever. Yeah. So we can say network. Okay. So I'll just add a string just to make it easier for us to see what's there. So the string, your network is okay. So we have to go and run this on the browser just to see what will print. But it's not going to run because we just defined this function. We've not called it. One simple way to call it is just to call it here. Just say exactly this way. That's one simple way to call it. Just to call it here. But you know, React, if you go to React websites, they have certain life cycle components. So I don't know how to find it, but let's go to React life cycle callbacks. So these are functions that come with React that run at different stages of the app. Like before your app loads, there's a function that everything you want to be done before your app loads, you put it inside a function. After your app load, there's another function, and so on. So here, it says React state and lifecycle in React. So if you go to React documentation, under state and lifecycle, you will see one of the functions there. Okay, under state and lifecycle, let me pull this to this place. So React, you see under state and lifecycle, you scroll down, you'll see, here under components did mount, okay, we can put this. We can copy this function and make sure we put something inside, so that here, so we can say component did mount. So React love that. We can just do copy this one. Okay, save. Alright, so let's go run this on our browser. So on our browser, mine will work, but yours may not work immediately, because remember I told you that you've not connected your database, your MetaMask. I will show you that, so don't worry if yours does not show what mine will show now. So I'm refreshing this React page. I'll right click on the page and view inspect elements. So it's reloading. Okay, so there's a little error. It says connect to blockchain is not defined. That's because we had an error, syntax error. So here, I'm going to put this at the bottom. So connect to blockchain is not defined. We're trying to call it here, so but we should have used this keyword, alright? That's what we should have used. Okay. And we're back here. We'll refresh, and guess what? It's loading. Let's look at two things. Let's clear out the CSS that came by default with React. Okay, so we'll go to index.css. Everything we see there. Okay, we highlight and clear. Alright, save. We'll go to app.css. Everything we see there, we highlight and clear and save. Okay, and then finally look at the extensions. So we'll go to extensions tab, and we install two extensions, one for Web3. Alright, I already have them installed. So you just type the Web3, click on the extensions tab, okay, type Web3 and then install. Okay, as you can see, I already have one or two installed. Okay, so the next one is to install Bootstrap. Alright, install Bootstrap code. So that's getting installed. Web3 Dev Pack. Just look through any cool toolkits about Web3 that you see. Just set it up. Okay, and then the next one is React. Okay, so basically things that help you to code React much faster. Just find them and set them up. My light back. Okay, so see, Predial code formatting and stuff. So these things help you to get your code running perfectly well. So we're back to app.js. So mine are successfully refreshed, but what you notice is that it instantly pulled up my MetaMask. Okay, so let's look at what MetaMask is. You see, it's asking me for a password. So that white blank page with hello the world has created a pop-up on my screen. Why did it create it? Because I already have something installed. So I'm going to cancel, close this out. So I'll show you how I got it. I'll close this out. So MetaMask is an extension. If you click here and you look at all these extensions I have a special one called MetaMask, and you need Chrome to be able to use it. There are MetaMask for other browsers, but I use Chrome, so I can only show you how to get it in Chrome. So just go to Extensions Pack, the browser Extensions Pack, and set it up. For me, this Extensions Pack is here. Look at these apps. If you click on it, So let me open a brand new page. Open a brand new page and click on apps. Okay, click on app. It takes you to a special Chrome tab where you can search for look at all the apps I have, and then I look for web store. Go to web store here. So if you're using Opera or Mozilla or any other browser, just look for how to install extension packs there. So now I'm in Chrome Web Store. You type MetaMask here, MetaMask. Okay, and you search. So there are millions of browser extensions, but the one we're looking for is the special one called MetaMask. So I'm searching for it now. You see the MetaMask. You see I've already added it, but if you've not added it, you just click MetaMask, and then you click here, add to Chrome. So once you add it, it's gonna take you through an installation process, okay, so that you can install MetaMask. Now the interesting thing is that MetaMask will give you about during the installation, it will give you about 12 different words in a specific order that you need to remember. Okay, if you ever lose your password, they will give you those 12 words. So what I advise is that you find somewhere to save those 12 words in those exact order, because when you start putting your real money, when we go live on Ethereum blockchain and we're no longer using test network, what's going to happen is that if you forget those things, your real money could be gone forever. So just do the sign up on MetaMask and everything, register, create a new account. So what's going to happen is once you reload this page, it will give you a pop-up. Okay, so this is showing me some sort of error. So once you reload, it will prompt, as you can see, it just brought up MetaMask for me. It's asking me to create an account with MetaMask, which I'm going to do shortly. Okay. So I already have an account, so it's going to ask me to, it's asking me to sign in to MetaMask. Hopefully remember that. Okay, this is not one of those passwords you should ever forget. MetaMask, it's always in your Chrome browser. Okay, there is a mobile app for it too. So if you go to Play Store, you should be able to download the MetaMask mobile app. So what is MetaMask? Is the equivalent of PHPMyAdmin for you. Alright, if you have ever built a server on your local system, so MetaMask is the equivalent of not PHPMyAdmin now, but WAMP server, NAMP server, LAMP server. That's what MetaMask is to blockchain. Alright, so once the login is successful, which just happened, I've successfully logged in. So if I click on MetaMask again on my browser extensions, it's going to give me a pop-up, and then I can see what's going on in my MetaMask, how many coins I have, which network I'm connected to. My MetaMask is open now. Let me drag myself out of the screen. So one thing you can notice is that I'm already connected to a certain network, and I have 0.1 ETH. How did I get it? This is fake ETH because this network is not real. So if you click on this drop down, alright, this shows you that we're connected, but this drop down shows you list of networks available, and you can even add more. But the interesting thing is that there is only one main network. Look at this, Ethereum main network. If I switch to this, whatever data you see here will be live, my real money on Ethereum. But this is fake money, alright, because we're on a test network. And this is Binance main network, this is Ethereum main network, whatever. Then there are so many, Ethereum created all these local host and whatever test nets. Now remember this port, localhost 8545, okay? And then you can add more. Now I have ETH in my account. I'll show you how to get a fake ETH into your account, alright? But this is where your account number is, basically your address. So this app we just built, if somebody visited this website or this app on their phone that we are building with Hello World, what's going to happen is that it will prompt them immediately to log in to their MetaMask. Okay. All right. So now if we go to, let's say, remember that the network I selected is this Rinkaby network. There are many networks here and all of them are the same. Okay. Just don't select the live ones. Okay. So here on this page, if I click inspect, so I just clicked inspect element. So once the inspect element opens, click on console. Remember we did console.log in our code. Let's see what console.log is showing us. Okay. What you notice here is the network. It says your network is this. Okay, so if we go to our code, we'll see that it says your network is, you see, this is our code. So what we console.logged, the network address. Okay, so another thing to do is to cross-check just to be sure that the system is right. Okay, we said your network is this. Okay, so if we go to our browser, it gives us this number that starts with 0x56 and ends with 3D. So if we go to our MetaMask right now, MetaMask, okay. So once it pulls up, we're going to cross-check this ID, this address, with the address that we used to, we're currently signed in with in the testnet. Okay, so here it has pulled up. So I'm going to copy this address from my MetaMask, copy it, clipboard. If I paste it somewhere, let me paste it in my code somewhere. You will see that it's the same address, you see? Ends with 3D, starts with 0x56, you see? So we're successfully connected to MetaMask, and MetaMask is running a local server for us that is a testnet. Okay, so the next challenge is for you to get some currency into your testnet. So you choose any testnet. There's a link I will paste below. Remember to join our Telegram group. That's where all these links will be permanently in the group description. Okay, but below this video, I'm going to paste a link for you to go to somewhere and just generate free Ether. So, but you need your ID. You need this number. Make sure you copy it from your MetaMask. All right. Once you copy it from your MetaMask, you note the network you are logged into. For us, we are currently signed into Rinkaby, so don't forget that. So the link is here at the top. It says faucets.chain.link/ for now we're going to start with /covan. Okay, so remember we copied our address. I will paste my address here, and then I'll select the network. Remember I'm in Rinkaby. See, Ethereum Rinkaby. Select it. Say I'm not a robot. Can you imagine it? A robot asking me to confirm that I'm not a robot. Okay, then send request. It says transaction initiated, and it's trying to send a fake money, fake Ether to our test blockchain. Make sure you have internet to run this. Okay, within a few seconds, if we open our MetaMask, we'll have Ether. So congratulations on getting to this part of this tutorial. This is the number 4 step. So step number 5, we'll continue. All right. So it says request complete. Congratulations, 10 testnet link and 0.1 testnet Ether were sent to your account. Okay. So click OK. Please. Now let's just confirm. We'll go to our Ether MetaMask. So a few seconds. For some reason, my MetaMask takes about 5 to 10 seconds to load. But once it loads, we'll confirm the ETH we have. You see, we now have 0.2. We had 0.1. That's the equivalent of 938 USD or whatever. So this is exactly what we have now. All right. So thank you very much, guys. See you. And this network is not connected. If you want to connect it, as usual, just click there. All right. Before we move on, I want to show you something interesting. This MetaMask is connected per website you are on. So we're currently on Chainlink website, and MetaMask is not connected to Chainlink website. So if I click connect here, it shows me MetaMask is not connected to this site. To connect to a Web3 site, find and click the connect button, whatever. But we're not connected. So if you build an app that uses Ethereum to make transactions, the app will prompt people to connect their MetaMask to the app. Once they make that connection, then your app can start making Ethereum transactions. All right. So if we switch, let us switch now. If we switch to our current project, which is this, the same browser, hello world, okay, and we open MetaMask. What you're going to notice is that MetaMask is connected. All right, this time around, the same browser, different websites. One is connected, one is not. So there you go, as you can see. We are now on this website and it's now connected because our code has made the connection. Right here, we have requested that connection and our code is now connected, all right? Okay, so see you in the next video. Let's print out this data on your screen instead of in the console, okay? So if you go to the home page of Web3 website, okay, what you notice on the right part is that there are so many different API calls you could make to Web3, and the one we want to use is on accounts, okay? So that's a way to get accounts. So once you've requested access, you request access, this line will pop up MetaMask, MetaMask, okay, and ask the person to sign up or log in. And once they have logged in, it will print their address. But also we can get the address by saying const, let's give accounts, just a name, and then we can say await web3.f.get accounts. So what you notice here is that as I'm typing, it's also suggesting some Web3 functions for me. Alright, and once I click on it, it gives me the proper way to use it, but I want to use it this way. So that's because we installed the Web3 plugin, alright, Web3 snippets plugin. So now we have it. Now in React, there's something called state. So that's basically how you take variables, modify them, then pass them down to the view. So in Laravel, this is the view, alright? This is, remember where we typed hello world, and we're doing some calculation here. Once we're done, we print to the view. So if you want to print to the view, first thing you have to do is to save the variable in something called state. So we call it this.setState. Okay. This is a React function, and you do this account. So it takes something that looks like an object, and then you can save all the variables you want. So the variable we want to save here is account. So this account comes in something like an array. So the very first account at location 0 will give us the address. Oops, what did I just paste?
It's 3 o'clock.
If I leave it like this, it will give me the address, but also if I leave it like this, it will also give me the same thing. Just know that that's how Web3 works for now. So we have saved the variable in set state. We need to have a constructor. Remember, this is a class. So that once this class loads, the constructor function will load constructor. This is React. In React, if you want to pass a variable, you have to do it exactly this way. You have to have a constructor. First of all, you save the variable using a set state. Then you have a constructor, and you must have the function super props Okay, it must be there. That's just React. So this dot state, okay, equal to account. So what we just did is we said whenever this class loads, or whenever the class is called, this is the first, the state should be set, the account variable should be set to empty. Okay, but then once the component has mounted, that is the view wants to load, we do all this call and we finally get the account variable as this. So we query MetaMask or Ethereum using MetaMask, and we get the address. Once we get it, we save it in the account. So the account is no longer empty. Here we have saved it into something. Now we can call it. So here we can say, let's say, instead of hello world, we can say your account, your address, or account address, whatever is. So here, this is how you echo something on the screen in React. This dot state dot account. So if we had more variables, we would have just easily included it here. Network, whatever. You get what I'm saying? So here we can now use this dot state dot network, but also we have to make sure that we list it here too. So that's how React is built. Now, if you want to read more, you just have to go to React homepage and try to read more. If you return here, I think this is React. Okay. See what I told you? That you must have this in the constructor under state and lifecycle. If you read through the page, adding lifecycle methods, you'll see that constructor, you must add this, and this is how you set a variable that will be used in the view. This is the view. So it's just a React way of passing variable to the view. Okay, so let's look at what we built and see whether it worked. So it has not refreshed. Let's reload it. Once you see this, the development server has disconnected. Refresh this page if necessary. Once you see that, it means you have to click on refresh or just right click and reload like this, because it means your command line has paused. In our own case here, it's reloading, so wait a few seconds. Let's do just one more thing. All right, remember I told you that request accounts and this one, they would just give you, both of them will give you the same thing. When you print them out, they will just give you the Ethereum address. All right, now let's try and print something else. Let's print the name of the network that is currently connected in. We're just going to create a new const, call it network name or whatever, and then await web3.f .net get network type. Okay. The reason I'm doing this is to show you that Web3 has so many functions like this. Just go through their documentation, you will see so many. All right, depending on what you want to work with, just go through the menu and go through it, and you'll see. But following a tutorial like this one will guarantee that you know the most important ones to use. All right, so as you can see on the Web3 documentation, you will see a whole lot of them, especially by the right. Okay, see a whole lot of them, depending on what you want to achieve at any point in time. If you're dealing with contracts, if you're dealing with whatever, they're all here. Okay, so I'm not making it up. All right, so let's just see our code in action. So now we've just tried to get the network name, and in React, this is just how React works. So whatever value you want to pass to the view, you have to include it in set state. You set it as state. Okay, so set state, comma, we'll give it any name. You can say any name, network type, network name. I think that's what we call it. Alright. So I chose any name so you kind of get an idea of how it works. Then here we are going to initialize any name to empty string so that when the page just opens, it's initially empty, and then this function runs and assigns a special value to it. Okay, and once it queries the Web3, okay, so we're going to say any name. This place is not compulsory, it's just kind of good practice. Okay, any name is initially set to 0. I can actually delete this whole thing and nothing will happen. Okay, so here we can probably create some HTML, let's say a key tag or whatever tag, and say your network name is brackets this.state. Okay, basically this.state, okay, dot any name. I'm making reference to whatever is here or whatever is here. So exactly like this, save, and then our server should pick it up and refresh the page for us, otherwise we'll refresh by ourselves. Now remember that if your server delays too much, like after you refresh, if it takes too many seconds, you can stop and start the server from the terminal. So I've refreshed the page. You may not see it, but I can see it, it's loading. Alright. So if your server, look at it, it's compiling. If your server delays, you stop the server by pressing Command C. Control C on your keyboard will stop the server. Control C on your keyboard will always stop the server. Then you can type any npm start again. Okay. So look at it. It says you access this address and your network is what Drinkable. Remember that in MetaMask, that's the network we're running. So if you look at the top of my browser, if I click here and load MetaMask, you'll see that Drinkable is exactly what we're running. Okay. You see, we're running Drinkable network. You see. All right. So we've come to the conclusion of this part of the tutorial. Now you understand what MetaMask is. You understand what Web3, how Web3 thinks and functions. So you just fuse it to any of your app, import it, and there's a CDN way of importing it. I just use npm. So once you've done the importation, the next thing you have to do is to start writing your code using Web3. Now what we're going to do now is to connect our code. Okay, to write a Solidity code, all right, connect our code to a blockchain, an Ethereum blockchain, all right, and a local blockchain, and basically connect our code to the Solidity, the smart contracts that we're going to write. So let's download the necessary softwares for running a local Ethereum blockchain first. Okay. So the software we're going to use is called Truffle framework. Truffle framework comes with something called Ganache. So let's open a new tab and type Ganache. Okay, download Ganache. It will take us to Truffle website. I already have it in my system. Okay, like I said, remember at the beginning of this tutorial, I told you Ganache is the equivalent of your sort of Apache server, you know, your WAMP server. Yeah. So if we do download Ganache, Gnacha, it's gonna take us to Truffle website where we can download Ganache, and then we install Truffle using npm. npm is how we are going to install Truffle framework. So download Ganache, and the first result says Ganache overview, whatever. So we'll just click on it, and it will open for a download. Alright, so this is the Truffle framework as it looks as of today. Remember that in the future, it will be slightly different. Okay, it might be slightly different. They might design it differently. So here is where you download, you see? This is where you download Ganache. Okay, so if you're using Windows, it's going to say Windows here. I'm using a Mac system, that's why it's saying Mac. Okay, so you click on it, download it, and install in your system. Alright, so let's pull up Ganache. Just go to my Launchpad. in my system. After downloading Ganache, I just start it. Go to, in your own case, just go to your start menu if you are using Windows and look for the Ganache that you downloaded. Okay. So go Ganache for me and click on it. So this is what the interface of Ganache looks like as it's loading. Mine is loading. This is the screenshot on their website. So first thing you notice here is that there's a server URL. Okay, there's a server URL, and then Ganache, like it's a local Ethereum blockchain. So it generates about 10 different accounts with you and preloads them with hundreds of Ether. So 100 Ether each, or Ethereum each. Okay. That's basically Ganache for you. So this is my own Ganache. It usually asks you this question. I usually go for quick start, but if every time you click a new workspace, it will refresh everything and give you brand new Ethereum. All right, brand new addresses. Just generates different addresses you could use for building your smart contract and testing. My RPC server, and as you can see, it's working well. So my Ganache is started and running perfectly fine. Alright, and I have all these Ethereum, okay, per address, Ethereum balance. Now another thing you will notice is that this Ganache changes, the design changes. So in the future, when you download Ganache and you're watching this video, if one or two things have changed, it's perfectly fine. Just make sure that your server is running and there's nothing else you have to do here, at least at this level. Alright, so what we're going to do is install Truffle. So you go to your command line and first of all, I've installed Truffle before. Open a new command line tab. If you're on Mac, you can just press Ctrl T and the new command line tab has opened. So I'll press Command T in my Mac. Command T. In your own case, just press a new command line. Command T. Okay. So here, what I'm going to do is to first of all check whether Truffle is installed. I'll just type Truffle, enter, and if it doesn't throw error, if it gives me really nice messages, that means Truffle is already installed in my system, which I've done in the past. But if it throws some error, then we're going to install Truffle. Alright, so that's the first thing you do when you want to install Truffle. Well, if you just type only Truffle, nothing is going to happen. So we're just going to do Ctrl C, okay, whether on Mac or Windows, Ctrl C. Now you see what Truffle just did. Alright, it gave me all these nice messages. That means Truffle is installed. Another thing you can do is do Ctrl C. Okay, this is where I will do Truffle dash version. Okay, Truffle dash version. Okay, hit enter. And it's going to tell us the version of Truffle that is currently installed in our system. What Truffle shows me, Truffle version, I ran it and it says Truffle version 5.4.22. In case you ever get errors with Truffle, like if you're taking this tutorial from 2-3 years after now, and you ever get a problem, you can make sure you install this exact version that I'm using so that you can run my course without problems. But I don't expect you to ever have a problem if you're using any feature version of Truffle. So, but if this doesn't work, that means you've not installed Truffle. So this is how to install Truffle. Okay, so we're going to do npm okay, install -g Truffle. So that's how you install the latest version of Truffle. If you type this and hit enter, it's going to install Truffle in your system. Make sure you have your internet connection on, and after a few seconds or minutes, it will have installed Truffle. Alright, now the next thing we're going to do is to set up, initialize Truffle within our project. So make sure that you are inside your blog app, okay? This is what I mean. Make sure that you are inside this blog folder that we are working on, that your command line is inside. In fact, the best way to be sure is to use the command line inbuilt into Node.js, alright? I don't expect you not to know how to be sure that you are inside a command line, but inside a certain project, okay? So we could use the command line, it's the same thing, but this one is guaranteed that we are in the right place. So I'm just gonna call myself okay. Okay, good. So make sure that you open the terminal. You're on the terminal tab, okay, and then you can run the command I want to run now, truffle init. Otherwise, just run it from here. It's the same thing here. Okay, so here you can run truffle init. Enter. So it's going to initialize truffle in this project, okay, for us. So it said init successful suite. Try our scaffold commands to get started. Truffle creates contract, your contract name. So we're not going to use this. I want us to write our contract, smart contract in Remix. I prefer to write it there than inside this VS Code. All right. So, but what I want you to look at is here. Truffle added new folders for us inside our project. Look at what our project looked like. Now it has migrations added. Okay. You see? But the most important thing is the contracts folder. It has migrations.sol. So when you're writing a smart contract, your files must end with .sol. So look at this. So isn't that interesting? I'm trying to pull this down too. Okay, so here we don't need this again. So pull it down. Run this one here. So you see, it has written a code for us, Solidity code for us. Clean. Don't mind this error. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is to write our own code here. I'm just going to right click and say, call it whatever, config. Config.solve. I will change the name later, but basically we'll create a config.solve name here. And another thing I will show you briefly is what happened in the package.json folder. When you're creating a smart contract file, it is advised that your file starts with capital letters and camel case. So inside the contracts folder, we created another empty file. This is where we're going to write our contract, but I prefer not to write the contract code here. We're going to go to a special browser editor called Remix, okay, for writing smart contracts, because that browser has everything, including testing them. Okay, when we're done writing, we can just copy our smart contract and come back here. All right, so look at this, truffle config.js. It added it to. All right, so this is where all the configuration files are. Now, another thing it did was to add a test folder for us so that we can test our smart contract after writing them. And then package.json, okay, that is updated. So that's what Truffle did for us. Now we are going to head to Remix and take the next few minutes to write a smart contract about our blog. All right. So here you can see what Truffle did in the package.json. All right. So go to your browser and visit remix.ethereum.org. Okay. In the browser here, visit remix.ethereum.org. remix.ethereum.org. So you don't need to sign up or log in or anything. It just opens an editor for you to start writing your smart contracts. So I like it because it has a way for me to test the smart contracts. It tells me when I'm making mistakes, and it's just amazing. Instead of using this VS Code to write it. Okay. Then it also helps generate something called ABI. All right. So once you're done writing your smart contract, Remix can generate an ABI for you. ABI is basically a JSON version of that smart contract. That JSON version is what our code Web3.js will consume. All right. Okay. So, all right. Our Remix has loaded, but before we write any code in Remix, let's just write a test. One line of code in VS Code, just to be sure that Truffle was installed correctly. So first of all, let's connect Truffle to our Ganache. All right. first thing I want you to remember is that Ganache here says that it's running on server localhost, which is 127.0.0.1 okay. All right, so now that Truffle is installed in our VS Code, you go to Truffle config and look for the networks. So you see there's a lot of commented out code because they don't want you to write much. If you want to set up anything here, you just uncomment it. So if you come here, you'll see networks. Then if you scroll down just a little inside network, you see development. Okay. Now highlight the development and uncomment it. Command question mark. Okay. That uncomments it. If you're on Windows, it's control question mark. So I'll save. Now it says development. When you're in development 127.0.0.1, and the port on Ganache is 7545. Okay, and any network ID should work. So we save. Another thing we want to set up is Sol C. Okay, here. Scroll down towards the bottom, you see Sol C, and the first thing it says here is optimizer. Okay, optimizer. We're going to highlight the optimizer and enable it so that our code will be optimized. Command question mark on the keyboard, and then it is uncommented. Make sure that enabled is true. Enabled is true. Great. Now the next thing we want to do is to quickly go to we'll go to smart contract and actually write some smart contract. Okay, so remember that we created a link, a file inside contracts here. We created a file here and called it config.sol. So now we're going to write our first smart contract just to be sure. Okay, instead of calling it config.sol, what I'll call it is our blog. Remember the blog that we want to build. So I'm just going to call it blog.sol. So basically, just see it as if you're writing a regular code where the name of the file, if the file is going to contain a class, all right, the name of the file should also be the name of the file, the class. And when you want to write your Solidity, you start with Pragma. First of all, you have to start with a comment. I'll show you that when we go to Remix. Okay, you start with a comment that says what license your Solidity should be, but it's enforced by Remix because your code on Remix is running on Remix servers. Okay, so here we're just going to do Pragma Solidity. That's how to start smart contract. Okay, well, you tell it the version. This line is trying to say which version. You put this caret, and then currently we're on version 0.8. By the time you're taking this tutorial, it could have been much higher, but just know that the code I'm going to write here will work for you too. How did I know it's 0.8? There are many ways, but the simple one is that in remix.ethereum.org, you would see that anyway, I think I should wait till we get there, but if you wanted to compile a certain code, it's going to tell you that, look at this, 0.87 is saying that that's the highest there. I click here, that's not the highest, almost the highest. Look at the latest version here, 0.81, 810, there's 0.8988, and this is 87. Okay, so like I said, in the future there's going to be 0.9 and 1 and so on, but just know that this code will also work there. If there are minor changes, it's just going to throw some sort of warning or error. You just copy the error, paste it on Google, and you find a solution. All right, there might be if you are writing a feature version of Solidity. If you don't ever want to see errors at all or any uncertainty, make sure you set your own Pragma to exactly this, 0.87. Okay, because the code I will write will work exactly for 0.87. So we're back here, and we have Pragma Solidity. We'll say that it should work for any version above 0.87. Any version above 0.87, semicolon, and then we start with a contract. Okay, just a contract looks like a class. And by convention, you can call your contract anything, but by convention, call it the same name with your blog, okay? I'll say with the file name, okay? Make sure it starts in capital letter. All right. So here, Pragma Solidity contract. So now we're going to just define one variable and try to use Truffle to compile. Okay, this is not like I said, it's just going to be just one line. You can say blog count, a variable that is supposed to give us, we're initializing it to 0, a variable that is supposed to give us the full count of blog when we write the full smart contract. So this is a complete smart contract, but it doesn't actually do anything. But now we want to save it and run in Truffle. I have to find out what's happening. It says source file requires a different compiler version. Current compiler of 0.147. Okay, note that nightly builds. Okay, so now you know, as you can see, my Truffle is requiring a much lower version. So what do? It's simple. Go to the code that Truffle wrote before. When I compiled Truffle, it wrote this migrations.sol. Then I'll copy the first 2 lines. Okay. So this is just a minor error. One of those things I told you that you might just run into while working. Okay. So this one just says anything from 4.22. So if I come here, I can just copy and paste. Remember the license line I told you? You don't have to memorize it. Anytime you need it, you can always get it from somewhere. Another thing we can do is to try and change this. See whether that works. Notice this, that the moment I reduced it to 4.17, the complaint stopped. Okay, the warning, look at this. If we come here, place your mouse here, it says that it requires 0.4.17, but the list we have here is 0.22. Now, in case you don't understand what this says, it says this code, this smart contract can work for any version greater than or equal to 0.422 and less than 0.90. There is nothing like Solidity 0.90 now, all right? But there's going to be soon. So that's just what this code says. And then the one is saying that this the source file is required to have 0.17. So all I have to do is change it to 17 and save. The error is gone. Okay, now on our command line, I'll just open the terminal again and right click here, terminal. Open the terminal again and write Truffle compile. Truffle compile. Hit enter. So if we run without errors, that means everything was set up correctly. We can then go to Remix and write our smart contract. So usually some of this may take a few seconds to run. Alright, remember that it's going to connect to your Ganache server and try to run. So deployment compilation has worked. So what is Truffle compile? Truffle takes your smart contract and turns it into a JSON code. All right, that's what compilation means, nothing else. All right, so we wrote Truffle compile and it did all this. After doing that, it was done. Remember that source that we modified, it used it. All right, okay, now so what did it really do? Truffle, remember that Truffle added some folders and files. It added test, added contracts, added migrations, added build, and then added this file. Okay, then modify package log.json. So inside build, you will see that when you run Truffle compile, Truffle builds all the smart contracts you have here into a JSON file. So the first one is migrations.json and the second one is blog.json. So here, let's open blog.json and boom, isn't that amazing? Look at this JSON file. This JSON file is basically an interpretation of our smart contract. Okay, that's just simple smart contract we wrote. That's what this JSON file is. You see so many specifications and a whole lot of things, and it's just beautiful. But we'll be back here. We'll be back here shortly. Now, another thing I want you to know is that we can deploy it to the blockchain. Okay, the local blockchain we installed. To deploy it, we'll go to migration. So what you'll notice here is that Truffle came with an initial migration. It says 1_initial_migration.js. So let's go there and we'll see that there's a default code that comes with it, and it's perfectly fine. So we'll copy it. If you're getting all these errors, don't mind it. It's just one of my plugins that is throwing the errors. So I'll copy this code. Now inside the same migration, I'll create another one, but this time I'll call it 2_. So the number, you have to number files in this migrations folder for Truffle so that Truffle will know in which order to compile. Alright, this is the folder that tells Truffle which order, which files, which of the smart contracts to compile first. So I'll open this just new file inside migrations folder and name it 2_. Then we can call it anything from here. I can say deploy _blog.js. Alright, of course, because smart contract is blog. So it's an empty file. I'll right click and paste. I've pasted the code we copied from migrations, then we change it from migrations to blog. How did I know what to put there? From here again, migrations to blog. How did I know? Because if you come into migrations, the file is named migrations and the smart contract itself, oh no, not here, here in the contracts, the contract name is migrations. Look at this. The contract name is migrations. Okay, that's how I knew what to name this. In our own case, the file name is blog, the contract name is blog. Okay, so here we just changed only that, blog and blog. Then we say, okay, we're good. Alright, then we'll come back to our terminal and write Truffle migrate. Okay, to see how Truffle is going to migrate this to the blockchain. So now the reason I'm doing this is so that in the future, once we're done with writing our smart contract fully and we start this process, is not going to look like some magic to you. That's why I just wrote just one line to show you how the process works. And this one too will take a few seconds to a few minutes. Just relax, and then very soon it will be done. Yes, actually, we made a mistake. I don't know if you saw it. The migration has completed, but I want to run migration again because here in migrations to deploy blog.js says here, it says migrations, so we're supposed to have it as blog. I didn't change all the migrations. Okay, so save, and then back to command line, and we'll run Truffle migrate again. Okay, so this is going to take a few seconds, and soon we're going to be done. Right, I want to move this up so that we can see the console very well. So first thing you notice is that the migration has run correctly. I ran Truffle migrate here, and then without compiling your project, everything is up to date because we ran Truffle compile earlier. And it says network name is development, network ID, and we set this in Truffle config. Okay. So deploy to deploy.js. Okay, remember we created to deploy.js, and this is the address, the transaction hash. That's the address. This is the contract address. This is the transaction hash, and I just looked through everything. It's nice, and interestingly, this cost us. So every time you deploy a contract to the blockchain, it will cost you ETH. All right, it will cost you money. So that's why you want to do everything on the local blockchain like this one now. Do everything, make sure it's working perfectly well before you push to live. Because if you push to live, it's going to cost you some ETH. Okay. And total cost 0.01113 ETH. Okay. Summary, deployment 1. Okay, so you see how it is. Now, the next thing we're going to do is open Truffle console and try to communicate with this blockchain we just with this contract we just deployed. Okay, we try to communicate with the blockchain and retrieve block count. So remember, if you come here, contracts on block.sol, we set one variable. Remember here, block count. So we'll try and retrieve this. So you type Truffle console. So this will take us into Truffle console. All right, and we can start writing some Truffle specific code. The first one will be to retrieve the address. Okay, this address we just saw here, we'll try and contract address, we'll try and retrieve it, and also the block count, we'll try and retrieve the two of them. So usually this takes a few seconds, so we'll usually pause the video and then come back after it has initialized the truffle console. Beautiful. I think I have to pull this down a little so that we can see. Pull it down just a little. Okay. So because what you're seeing here is we're now in truffle development console. So what we're going to do is we'll create any random variable and assign it to this class, this contract block.deployed. That's just how you write it, block.deployed. Deployed is a function, okay, that will now help you to retrieve things inside this blockchain and other details about inside this contract. Okay, so we're going to create a new variable. I'm going to call it small letter block, okay, equals await. Okay, now every time you're communicating with the blockchain, you need to know that it's a communication that will go and take some time before it comes back. So that's why in JavaScript you use await. That's why async await is created, and most of this tutorial, that's exactly what we're going to use. So we basically make a request to the blockchain and we wait a little. We want the code to wait till the result is back, something like that. That's a layman's explanation. So we do async await, and then we do this class, this contract name, block.deploy. Deployed this way. So that's exactly how we do it, and then we hit enter. Okay, something is undefined there. I don't know why it said undefined. I don't know what it was expecting, but if you run block.address, it gives you this address. That's the address of the smart contract. Remember, it ends in F13, so that's the address of what we just deployed. Look at it, F13. Okay, so which means even in our JavaScript, we can run this and then run block.address and it will give us. This block here is the variable we already created, okay? We already created this variable, we assign this to that. Now another thing we can do is to get the task count or block count. We can do log counting. I know why I'm putting counting instead of count. You can say await app dot block count. Now this block count is the block count we used here. We're trying to access this variable. Alright? We're trying to access this variable. So this is how we access it. App dot the variable inside our smart contract. We hit enter. Let's see what does. The thing is that it's not returning exactly what I wanted. I've tried to access the variable in two different ways, but it's not showing. Now that's probably because Truffle must have updated something recently. So like I said, every time you run into an issue like that, you just go to their documentation. I will show you how to get to Truffle documentation, and here we are on Truffle website. So if you go to trufflesite.com and click on docs, trufflesite.com. Just before I even continue, note that that error is insignificant. Alright, I was just trying to show you what Truffle console looks like. Okay, it's not really significant. But if you go to Truffle website where we downloaded the Ganache, click on documentation, and at the bottom here you will see using Truffle develop and console. Okay, if you click on it, it brings you to this page using Truffle develop and console. So you see that the command we just run Truffle console, and then a whole lot of other things you can do. But then most importantly, where I would have seen the solution to that problem was at the bottom here. It says see full documentation of command reference for more information. The unfortunate thing is that if you click this link is actually dead. If you click it, it brings you to a funny looking page. Look at what this page looks like. Can you imagine? So it's undesigned. I tried to open it in another browser and it's entirely blank in the new browser. Still loading. No matter how many times you refresh it, it will keep loading. So that's why I couldn't figure out the solution to that. So we're just going to leave it and move on because it's not really significant in what we want to do. So the good thing is that we've done the main things, all right, and which is you've seen how Truffle Console works. We've deployed our platform to the blockchain, and we've compiled. And now all we're going to do is to write a better smart contract that will simply be a blog, all right, where we can just send something to the database, to the blockchain, and then retrieve it, okay? All right, so we're going to go to, I'll copy this so that we can go to Solidity and complete it. We're going to go to Remix and complete it. So go to your browser, visit remix.ethereum.org. Okay, so remember remix.ethereum.org, the browser at the top there, remix.ethereum.org. So when you visit it, it's going to create something like this, all right, with default files and folders. We don't need any of those default anything, so we don't need anything. So I'm going to delete all of them. All right, we just want to write our smart contracts in just one file, run it and see that it's working well, and then we go to hold on a second. All right, so once we run it and it's working well, we generate something called ABI, and then we use it in our code. That's just what we want to do. So delete everything, right click, delete for everything, right click, delete. Okay, right click, delete. Okay, fine. We're good. Okay. So now I'm going to create a new file by clicking this button here, and we're going to call it blog.sol. So click the button, it gives you the opportunity to create a new file. Note that you might have to double click it depending on if a single click does not work. So let's type blog.sol. Blog.sol. All your smart contracts in Ethereum must end with a .sol. Alright, so we paste the code we wrote partially in VS Code, and then we continue from here. Wants to send you notifications. Okay, allow. Okay, I wanted to paste, and it's asking me whether I should paste them. I'm like, yeah. Alright, so this is the basic code. I'll try and zoom it in a little. Funny thing is that it's created extra files. Okay, cool. So I'll try and zoom it in. I'm trying to zoom it. For some weird reason, it's not zooming. Okay, sooner or later it's gonna zoom. Okay, good. Got it. So a little zoom to balance the forces of nature, and then here I'm going to drag this closer to this place, and then we can start writing our smart contract. Okay. All right, guys. So write this, and the next thing we're going to do is to write the content of the blog post. So we're going to call struct. In Solidity, just like in some programming languages, struct is a general kind of variable type that you can define other variables inside. Okay, so a post is going to have, for a start, a post is going to have uint. In Solidity, uint stands for integer, alright? Basically, it's the same thing as uint256. So whether you type uint or uint256. So a blog post is going to have an ID. It's going to have a string that consists the content. Of course, there are other things that could be there, such as title, date of publication, and so on. But you know that this is just a demo blockchain project. I'll leave you to add those. And one thing you have to know is that every data you add to the blockchain costs money. Alright, during processing, it's going to cost money. So you have to be very careful of what data you're adding, and your entire code should be small so that it will cost less gas fee to process. Okay, but this is just for demonstration, this whole tutorial. So a blog content, a blog post is going to have ID, content, and probably an integer that says whether the blog content has been read or not. Okay, so we can say that's a boolean that says whether it's read or not. So I can just call it read. Okay, so we've defined this struct. I just want to highlight this as well. So I want to remind you that this interface, which is remix.ethereum.org, enables you to, you have to be online to be able to use it. Your system has to be connected to the internet. So the next thing we'll write is mapping. Well, mapping UN256 to post. This post we created here, and saying public. So we define another variable. So basically, what this line is saying is that this variable, you need to see it like an array. Okay, so in the future, if we do posts, just further down our code, we can do posts at location 1. Okay, if we do post at location 1, it will go to the blockchain, search for posts where ID is equal to 1, and retrieve these three contents for us: ID, content, and read. You understand? So that's what we want to achieve. That's what this mapping means. So every time you see mapping, just know that we want to access this content like it's as if it's an array. So that's what mapping looks like in Solidity. Okay, so this contract, you know, it looks like a class, but it's actually a contract. So this contract would have a constructor, so that anytime we call the contract, the constructor will load. All right, constructor is the initial function that runs every time you call a class. Okay, in this case a contract, but I'll write it a little later. For now, let's create a function that will help us create a blog post. Okay, in this function we're going to accept one thing, which is the content of the post, just the content of the post. So we're going to call it, I'm going to talk about one or two things here, but let's look at we'll call it string memory of content. Now let me explain what I just did. This function is going to be public. So far what you have noticed is that you always have to define the variable scope of most variables and functions in Solidity. Like here, uint public means it can be accessed from outside this function. Same thing with outside this contract. Same thing with this mapping. And then this function, notice where we declared the variable scope, which is public. And typically in JavaScript, you're going to define the scope here, like in PHP, it's going to be public function. You get what I'm saying? So just note the difference. And then another thing is this memory here. There are two types of memory in Solidity. One is storage, the other one is memory. So storage, and the other one is memory. So storage is whatever you want to save in the blockchain. If you want to commit data to the blockchain, that variable type has to be storage. Okay. Now, if you just want to commit data, assign data to something, to a variable, and use it within a function, after which it is gone, you save it as memory. Now in Solidity and Ethereum, string variable type takes a lot of resources, which is a lot of Ethereum to process. So anytime you are defining that string variable as a parameter in a function like here, we're defining a function where somebody will pass in a string. You have to tell Solidity what the memory type is. Okay. How did I know this? Of course, from the Solidity documentation. So if you go to Google and type Solidity documentation, you'll see the documentation there. You can go through it. Okay. So this is different from if I wanted to accept integer here. For instance, let's say I want to accept integer, let's say ID. Okay. If I wanted to accept integer ID here, I wouldn't have to specify whether it's memory or not. Solidity automatically assumes that it's memory. Okay. Another thing is the variables you display here are called state variables. Alright. These are variables you declare before you even start any function or constructor. They are called state variables. Modifying these variables would modify data. Let me say creating variables here would affect the blockchain. So they are different from this kind of variable, which is just a parameter. Okay, so these ones are called state, S-T-A-T. See, state variables. So if I ever say state variable, you already know we're talking about these variables we declared at the beginning of the smart contract, including this one. All right. Okay, so we just want to pass the content of the blog post, and then in this function, every time we call create post, we pass the content of the blog post. Now, the one last thing I want to mention or explain is this underscore. Okay, this is a new variable. It's different from what you have here. Okay, I'm just trying to pass a parameter into this function, but I used underscore. So it is convention, all right, in Solidity that when you are creating a variable that will be used only within a function. Okay, when you're trying to pass a variable as a parameter to be used only within a function, you start it with an underscore. Just to make it easier to read, it doesn't mean that if you don't use underscore, it's not going to work. No, it will, but you use underscore. So if I remove this underscore now, Solidity gets a little confused, and then you, the reader, might get a little confused in the sense that this content also looks like this one. So when you are making a call inside a function or to this variable, you wouldn't know which one you are making reference to, but putting underscore differentiates the two of them. Okay. All right. One last thing is this post here is different from this post here. These are two different variables. That's why this one is a small letter. I could have called this anything. All right. So they are just two different variables. Don't let them confuse you. So this is a struct that saves multiple variables, more like an object. Okay. And we're saying every time we pass a certain ID to this variable, it should go and get us the particular struct in the blockchain that has that ID. That's what we're trying to do here. So finally, comments. In blockchain, in Solidity, there are two types of comments. The first one is the double slash, which you just used at the start of this. This double slash comments, you could use it to just remind yourself of things. Okay. All right. You could use it to remind yourself of things. But there's another type of variable called another type of variable that is 3 slashes. Okay, so if you do 3 forward slashes, then this comment can be accessed externally. All right, so when we are making a call to this comment from our React Native app or React JS app, if I'm making a reference to this contract from Truffle console or React app, what's going to happen is that they can read these comments. Okay, so here, this is how to use 3 comments. You do add, then you use either notice, add dev, okay, or add param. So that's what you those are the three things you can use. There are more. I think there are up to 5 or so. There are more, but I usually use notice. Notice kind of is like describing a function. You can say notice. For some reason, my Solidity is slow today. Remember, I told you that it works with the internet. So if your internet is slow, Solidity is slow. So you can say this. What does this function do? Create a new post. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Which parameter does it accept? You can say space param accept. So space param accept underscore content. Okay. Content of the post to be made. Alright, so that's it. So this is how you pass you add comments that could be accessed from third party. Okay. The funny thing is, if I change this content, this the Solidity will know in this comment, because Solidity reads this comment, so it's going to warn you that there's a problem, that you are defining a parameter that you did not use. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is once this function is called, it's supposed to create a new content. It accepts the content of the post and automatically creates it. So first thing we want to do is, we initialized a block count to 0. So first thing we want to do is to block count, increase it by 1. Okay. Now remember I said that uint and uint256 are the same, so I could actually just leave this at uint256 and it will mean the same thing. Okay. So we initialize the ID or block count or whatever of the block. Okay. Then we do something interesting. We save the content of the block inside this struct. Remember that we have already mapped the struct to post. Remember that with this variable, what we're saying is every time we pass an integer, go and find the particular struct in the blockchain. So here we're saying tasks, give us the block, not task now, but posts. Give us go and save post at block count. There you save this task struct. So so the thing with struct is that when you want to pass the data into a struct in Solidity, you use it as if it's a function. So this post here, I want to pass data, and the data I'll pass is 3. I'll pass an ID, a content, and a read, which is true or false. Okay, whether the post has been read. Alright, so now I want to pass it. So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to pass an ID. The ID will be block count. Alright, and then comma. The next thing is the content. The content is going to be whatever was passed into this variable. So I'll do underscore content. And then the last thing will be whether the block has been read or not. So in this case, I'm just going to put false. It has not been read. And I'll put semicolon. So this is exactly how to pass a variable, a data into a struct. So we created an instance of this struct and we passed this data into it. And we're saying, go and save it in the database at location what? Block count. And block count, the first time this post is called, block count will be 1 because it was initially 0, but here we have increased it to 1. So we're saying go to posts location 1, alright? And then save this data into it. So the next thing we want to do is to define the constructor we wanted to start with, and that constructor should be just, this is how you define a constructor in Solidity. So remember that if you're a programmer already, I expect you to already know what a constructor is. I've already explained it, that whenever this blog contract is called, it will look for the constructor function and execute whatever is inside it first. Okay. So as usual in Solidity, you have to state the variable type. So we call it variable type public. Now, just a little tip before we continue. What are other things you could use here? You could use external. You could use internal. All right. Those are the things you can use here. You can also use things like payable. So if this smart contract will receive payment and you want the constructor to receive payment, then you have to also mention that apart from saying that it's public or private or external, you have to mention that it's payable. So in Solidity, if a function is going to process payment, you have to mention that it's payable. Okay, so public. Another thing which we will not which we will not cover in this course is you can pass a modifier there. A modifier is basically a function that you want to run at the beginning of every other function. Okay, in Solidity. So I could write a small piece of code here, define it as a modifier, and say maybe do some calculation inside that code. So whenever I'm creating another function that I want that piece of code to run, I will mention the name of that modifier here, okay, at the top of the function. So, but it's beyond the scope of this course, so we'll just stick it to public. The reason I'm mentioning it is so that you'll get an idea. Like I said, all these things you can figure it out from the Solidity documentation. So here at the beginning, we want to call, we want to call the create task function. You have to forgive me for the slow Solidity today. Okay, so this function here, create post. So we pass in the string because create post function will accept the string, and the first post we want to create is this is an amazing post. This is an amazing post, right? The partner, and then the close. Okay. So remember I told you that most experienced Solidity developers would rather not use string. They will instead change it to bytes, okay? Because strings consume resources on Solidity, but like I said, we're not really interested about resource consumption. We're just trying to learn how to sync Solidity with a front end like React and JavaScript and stuff, okay? So once this smart contract is called, we just want a basic post created to start with. So now let's go and test this. We'll copy this, Control A, I'll highlight everything, copy it, and get back to my code, and then we can run it. So there you go. We go to our code. Remember, we go to blog.sol. Okay. Sol it stands for Solidity. Okay, so we'll replace what we have here with this, the code we wrote, and save. And all these empty spaces are compiler does not like it, so delete the empty space. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is to actually run migrations. So come to command line. Exactly like we did before, we're just trying to check if our code runs well. So here, I'm going to run truffle migrate. Now when you're running truffle migrate, you can actually reset, okay? Reset. Another thing I wanted to show you is from here in Ganache. Remember Ganache? The first truffle migrate we ran to the first time we deployed our code to the blockchain, it cost us some Ether. You see, our Ether has reduced, okay? So we're going to deploy again this short code, but first of all, we run truffle migrate. Oops. Yeah. truffle migrate, that just reset, hit enter, and then chill for a short while. Here, truffle has run. Okay. Now, what you notice here is that it costs some ETH to run. All right, the truffle migrate. It costs some ETH. So now, if you look here, you'll see we've lost some Ethereum. Okay, or Ether. Okay. So every time you deploy a contract to the blockchain, especially when we're going live, it's going to cost you something. So here, let's do what we did before. So we'll create a variable, can call it anything. I'm just going to call it blog post equal to await. Okay. Then this contract, the name of this contract is blog.deploy. Okay. Now it's assigned, and then the next thing we can do is to do the same kind of await. We could do. Let's check the address. We can do blog post dot address. Enter. It gives us the address, and then let's create another task. Okay, so we can just say here. We could say post, just random variable equal to await, and then we can say blog post. Blog. This is the blog post variable we just created, which is equal to blog.deployed. Okay, blog post dot posts. So which posts are we talking about here? We're trying to access this. Okay. So we're saying this post variable is equal to blog post dot this post mapping. So hit enter. The correct way to do it right now, like I told you, usually these things upgrade. The correct way is now we started with creating a variable and assigning it to the contract.deployed, and then now we can use that variable to access .address. So we can also use that variable to create our first post. So we can do to create it to access this post variable. You can say blog posts, which is that variable, dot posts variable, and then we pass in the location. We can say location at location 1. Remember that when we call blog.deployed, this this particular constructor ran this it ran this function and use this function to create the first blog post. Okay, so if we say, and remember that it incremented this, and this block count is now at location 1. Okay, so if we say show us what is at location 1, that's what we're doing here. Say enter. It says okay, this is what we just ran. Show us what is at location 1. Says result, words, how many words, length, whatever. But the interesting thing, it says at location 1 you have this is an amazing post by the partner. Is that not what we have here? Wait, okay. Good. So in our smart contract here, it says that once this blog.deployed is called, it should create this. It's showing that yes, it has created it. Okay. Content. This is an amazing post by the partner. And whether it has been read, false. You see? Very good, which means our smart contract is working. So let's complete the smart contract and we'll get back right here. Right, if we come to the remix, all right, if you look at the left part of remix, so let's click on the left part. So I just wanted to show you that you could get at the bottom here. For some reason, why is it throwing an error? So this is what Solidity remix error looks like. For some reason, it's complaining about this. So if I place my mouse here saying visibility for constructor is ignored. If you want to contract to a non-deployable, whatever. Okay, so it's telling me that probably in this latest version that I don't need to put this. Now, here's the interesting part. If you come to if you come to our code here, the same code, see that there's an underline here, and the error message is different. It doesn't tell you what it's complaining about. Look at this. So that's why I prefer to write Solidity in Remix. See, expected identifier, got L parent, doesn't mean anything. You see, the error message doesn't mean anything in VS Code, so I'm going to delete this. So basically what it's telling me is that it's ignored. Alright, so I wanted to show you ABI, Application Binary Interface, which is just a JSON convert of this, okay, the JSON equivalent. So now I've fixed the error, come to this second code and see that compile it. Make sure that you're compiling within a version that falls into the range you put here. Okay, version 0.87 falls between 0.4 and 0.9. Okay, so click compile. You can also do enable optimization. Okay, and click compile. Within 2 or 3 seconds, it has compiled this. Now, if you look at the bottom, of the screen here, what you're going to see is ABI. You see, if your compilation has run successfully, this will be what green. Okay, so what you're going to see is ABI. So if you click here, you'll be able to copy the ABI of this code. That is the JSON equivalent. So let's come to our source code here, and in the app.js, let me minimize all these windows. So remember, we copied the ABI. So this build folder, this contracts folder, minimizing it, migrations folder, minimizing it, and so inside SRC, where I have app.js and so on, let me create another folder, another file that I'll call config.js. Config.js. Okay, so this config.js has been created, and here it's empty. So now I can paste the ABI. Right click and paste. ABI is a long, look at this, it's really long, really long. Okay, has no definition of anything, but very long. So one thing I can do is go export const, call it log ABI =. Okay, so we're exporting this. Now there's another way to get this ABI apart from Solidity. Solidity just makes it easier. Another way to get it is to come to build, and block.json. So Truffle also makes it really easy. Truffle compiles an ABI for you. So I'm going to do this. So inside block.json, I've clicked block.json, you scroll down and look for the API, or you control, to find it, I'm going to do control, command F, and do API. Okay, look at it here, you see, on line 3, it's at the beginning. So I can copy this whole ABI from here all the way down, but the way I'm going to do it is to click this arrow to minimize. So I can now copy from here to here. Right click, copy, come to config.js, and paste. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, but I'll prefer to use, just for clarity purpose, the one that we just copied that was compiled by Truffle, but it's exactly the same thing. Okay, so I've highlighted delete. Now I can paste. I can do Ctrl V. Okay, see, exactly the same thing. So it is what it is. So first of all, the last line shouldn't be a comma. It should be more like a semicolon. Then the very first line should not be ABI. So delete this ABI. Okay, and errors should go. Why do we still have errors? Okay, it has gone. Ctrl S to save. Now, what is this blog API? This is just a variable I made up right now. Okay. So we want to use this API. We want to make reference to it from our app.js. That's why we have to export. In React, you have to always export variables from a file you want to use. Another thing you also have to export is the address. You know, every time a blockchain contract is deployed, it's deployed to a certain address. So that address is what we want to also have here. So we do export const. We can call it blog. It's just a habit that when you're defining a constant variable, when you're defining a variable as a constant, you use capital letters. It's just a convention. You can always use small letters if you want, by convention. So you can say blog address equal to. How do we get the address? There are so many ways. We can just look at the last deployment and it will tell us the address. Remember when we did blog.address? Exactly. That's how to get the address. Nothing special. But there's another way. So apart from getting the address from the command line by running blog, this address, apart from getting it this way, there's another way. If we get back to the blog.json, we're back to blog.json where we copy the ABI, remember? So this is blog.json. Here we copy the ABI. Remember, I did not cut it. I only copy it, okay? So don't remove it from here, just copy. At the very bottom of this page, at the very, very bottom, just at the bottom, scroll all the way down to the bottom. At the very bottom, okay, you will see the address. Look at this address. Okay, the reason I left two of them here is that so that you will see that they are the same. See, this and that. So I'm just gonna copy, and then we come to our config.js and indicate it here as the address. So I'll put a semicolon here. It's JavaScript, so you don't really need the semicolon, but why not put it there? Semicolon, save, Ctrl S, save, good. So we're good to go. Alright, right here, now we have our ABI. This is the equivalent of having our smart contract inside our app, okay? So we can get back to that app.js that we started with and import it. So at the very top here, we can import, say import. We're importing two constants, okay? So the very first constant we're importing is log underscore ABI, you see? Then we also import log underscore address. Okay, these are the two things we created, and then we say from config. Okay, so you can also, it's the same thing with doing this. So now we've imported the two of them. Now let's use it. So to use it, we are going to come into this async connect to blockchain right here. We never used this network and it's complaining. So for now, I'm just going to comment out this. But remember that this is what requests your MetaMask. And we did network name. Just somewhere here. I can say const log post equal to new web3.s.contract. So this is how to connect to a contract in Web3. So you mention the ABI and the address. So you do log ABI, then log address. So these two things will connect. Now we're going to make save it in a state. So in React, you always have to do this.setState. So the set state will say blog post. Oops. So that's how you set state. I'm used to putting semicolon. In JavaScript, semicolon is very optional, right? Say. So this is how you set state, and then of course we can pass it in to the here. I think I should minimize this too. We have to minimize this. Okay. So we can pass it into the view here. Before we can do that, the next thing we have to do is to console.log. Okay. So we can say console.log blog post or whatever. Blog post. So we can do blog post. Alright, so if we run this app right now, it should give us the blog post. So we get back to the browser. The very first thing is a very huge, gigantic error. And what's the error about? It's telling us something interesting about the config file. I'm trying to run the app, okay? It's telling us app.js that config.js does not match the file we're trying to point it to. So if we get to our code, you notice that this file starts with a capital letter, which was honestly a mistake on my part. It should have been a small letter by convention, but it being capital doesn't spoil anything, okay? And here, we should have used the capital letter C to refer to it, alright? So if you remove this and make it capital, that error will go to save. And we're back to the browser, and it's automatically refreshed. And keep your eye here. It says blog post. Remember, we did console.log. I think I should be at the bottom here. So we did console.log here. Console.log blog post. Then we echoed out what we got from the contract. Now, if you're confused about how I ended up with web3.eth.contract, it is in it's in Web3 documentation, which I showed you at the beginning of this tutorial, that Web3 has a lot of things. So this is how you read a contract in Web3. Okay, go to their documentation where we got all these other things. Okay, so here we can see very clearly that it has printed the blog post for us. So we can start looking at working with that. So contracts. And you see all these details about our contract. So everything is fine. Now we're going to try and convert it to some sort of HTML. Alright guys, before we continue, we need to sync MetaMask on our browser with Ganache on our system, so that MetaMask will start using Ganache as the server. Alright, so go to your Google Chrome. So click on MetaMask, and once it opens, we need to add Ganache as a server, and then we need to sync our private key. Alright, so okay, so first of all, I did that already before starting this video, so I'm just going to walk you through the process. But as you can see, I now have 99 fake Ether. So first of all, click on this network icon. Alright, make sure that you're showing test networks. That's how you see all this list. So at the bottom here, you click on add network. Okay, so once you click on add network, it brings you to this page. Now you can add network. Now if you are watching this video from the future and your MetaMask doesn't look like mine, and you can't find the controls that I just or options I just clicked, calm down and look around MetaMask. You will see the way to add a new network or server. But at the end of the day, if you still can't find it, feel free to Google how to add network or server. Alright, so this is how to, this page will show us, will enable us add a network. First of all is the network name. Just call it any name. For me, I'll call it Ganache. Ganache, whatever spelling is. I never make a mistake all the time. it says new RPC URL. So you open your Ganache server. If you look here, it says RPC server. Okay, so you just copy it. Copy. And come here and paste. Okay, I've already added it. That's why I'm seeing this error. It says chain ID. Usually you type anything at all, it's going to throw an error and give you in the error, you'll see the correct number. Alright? Another thing to do is to come and copy this network ID 577. It's usually not the correct one, but like I said, if you paste it here and you go to the next option, this kind of error, let me just change this. Okay, so if you paste it here, it will show you in the error to show you the correct number. So you apply it, alright? And then leave the currency symbol and the block explorer empty, then click save. Okay, so once you save it, you'll notice that the network has appeared here and it is selected. Okay, now it's selected, we need to add a private key. So you click here. You click here and go to import account. Okay, another way to get there is to use the same drop down, the MetaMask drop down, and go to import account. So for some weird reason, my own MetaMask takes 5 to 10 seconds to pop up. And the funny thing is that if you exit this screen while it's trying to pop up, it's not going to pop up again. So it's up now. So the same thing with this button. Click on this button and click on import account. So once I click on import account, it asks me this. Right, it says paste your private key string here. So to do that, we'll just go to Ganache. Now remember that when we started Ganache gave us 10 Ethereum accounts with 100 Ether each. Alright, now if you look at the extreme of this, each account, you see that there is a key. If you click on that key, it gives you the private key. Alright, so you just copy the private key, copy, come to MetaMask, import account, and paste. Make sure that private key is selected here. It's usually selected by default, but you can see that there are other options. Click import. And of course, make sure it's Ganache that is selected, your new network. So as you can see, I've imported 100 ETH. Okay, so that's how to import enough ETH to do an Ethereum or Ether to do anything. So once you have it correctly, that's when your code will start working. Okay, somewhere earlier in the tutorial, we were having issues in Truffle console, trying to get our code to read a certain variable inside the inside our smart contract. That is the block count. We're having so much errors. It's because our MetaMask was not connected to Ganache. That was where the problem is, not with Truffle. So if I get to my Visual Studio, now this is where we stopped in the previous code. Alright, and we printed blog post. That's where we stopped. So you just need to we're trying to fetch the block count variable that we have inside our smart contracts. So let me leave this. You should type this line. Alright. So we're trying to access this variable inside our blog.sol. This variable, block count, we're trying to access it. Remember that once we called blog.deploy, or once we connected to the blockchain, it ran this constructor, and this constructor ran this function, and this function incremented this block count. So we should expect to see 1. So here, we'll say const block count, just created a variable and said it's equal to the same thing we did here, await blog post, this blog post here, Okay, we've already made this blog post makes a connection to our smart contract, and we're saying after that connection has been made, methods dot block count dot call. Okay, in Web3, you have to always add dot call. So if you read Web3 JSR documentation, okay, so console.log block count. If we then come to our code, we can see that here, I have to refresh this page. Alright, something interesting here. Your account give us the account, alright? It says your network name is private. It's no longer ringable because we've changed it in MetaMask, okay? It's now known as private because we are now connected to Ganache. Now, this is our first console.log, but this is the second one. It said block count is equal to what? 1 because it was incremented, you remember? So that's our console.log. Alright, so let's do the usual React ritual of setting state. So let's say, so instead of listing on the console, I'm going to delete the console, delete them. Okay, and now we can say in React this dot set state. Okay, that's how you pass variable to view in React. This dot set state, then curly brackets, then we do block count. That's it. Then we'll come to the constructor and initialize it to a certain value. So I'm going to initialize this to 0. Block count initialize to 0. Okay. And then here in the view, we can actually do block count. I'll Command C, Ctrl V to duplicate the line. That's how you duplicate the line. Just click anywhere on the line and Command C, Command V, or Ctrl C, Ctrl V. So we're going to say the task count is this takes block count. Alright. So if we go refresh our page now, we should see reload. Alright, so far this is beautiful. The next thing we're going to do is to write some CSS. So in the next 5-10 minutes, I'll just be writing some CSS. All you have to do is fast forward the video a little, pause it, and then write your own CSS. And another thing I can do is to make sure I put the source code in the link below or in the next slide, so that you can easily go to my GitHub account and get the source code, alright? In case you don't want to type. So here, I'll minimize all folders. Minimize. I hope I showed you what I wanted to show you, that here it's saying your block count is 1. So we're now talking directly with the blockchain, and it's working pretty well. So here, if you look at the CSS, right? App.css. We cleared everything inside before, so now we're going to write some CSS for that page. So basically we want to beautify this page. We don't want it plain like this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll do name, margin, top, 60 pixels, form. Because we're going to be creating a form for updating the blog, okay? And then, of course, we're going to write the code for it too. Margin, button. So this is just a fancy design by me. You can, if you're working with a website that already has its own design, that's great too. So I just want styling to have some our page to have some little styling. So here I'm just going to put red blog post content color right and text declaration line. Okay, so we're done. Now I want to add something here. Hopefully it will help someone. Now if you're writing CSS and you're wondering you want to use gray, and you know there are two spellings of gray. There's gray and gray. So this is how the British people will pronounce it, gray, and this is how the Americans people will pronounce it, gray. So if you're ever wondering or confused which one to use, remember that the CSS is American. So CSS speaks American English. So the wordings are American. Okay. Now, but that's for CSS. But if we were using something like Tailwind, if you know Tailwind, if you don't know it, no problem, just forget about it. But if you are using something like Tailwind, it speaks British English. So in Tailwind, the gray will be spelled as gray. Okay? So Tailwind speaks British, and CSS and Bootstrap speaks American. Okay. All right. So I will refresh just to be sure that what we had worked. Remember that this is CSS for app.js, and we imported it. If you look at app.js here at the top of the file, you will see that we imported app.css. Okay, so the code we wrote should apply to the page immediately. Okay. All right, good. Guys, let us get into React Bootstrap. Like I told you, we're trying to restyle this page and make it look cool, okay? But not too cool because this is not a design course. But first of all, I want to put a navbar just to show you how to put one. So you go to Google and look for React Bootstrap. Remember, we installed it initially when we were starting. We installed React Bootstrap, so you type React Bootstrap in Google, okay? React Bootstrap. So it takes you opens the search results, and you go to React Bootstrap website. Okay, click here, takes you to React Bootstrap website, and then this is React Bootstrap website. So on the left panel, the difference between React Bootstrap and Bootstrap is that React Bootstrap has been customized to work with the syntax of React. Okay, normal Bootstrap will work, but with some little adjustments. But React Bootstrap has already been customized, and the Bootstrap version here is 5.1. Okay, so you look for navbar. We're looking for a navigation bar, and if you're scrolling down, you'll be seeing the designs. This is the sample design of the one I want to use. But if you scroll down, you'll see other navbar designs. What is navbar? This thing you see here, the top navigation of the page. So I'm just going to copy this code. This is the design I like, or let's use the black one. This is the design. Okay, so copy. So it copies this code. This code is supposed to show me this. So I'll go to my code, app.js, and right here. Now, one thing you should know is in React, once you have a render function, there must be an overall parent element, usually a div. So I'll delete all this. Okay, and then put a div like this. So once you have that parent element, every other thing you're doing should be inside it. It's just a React way of doing things. Then here I can paste the navbar. So paste. So I've pasted the code that. Now that it is pasted, okay. First of all, I want to move the indent them to the right a little. Not that it means anything, but I like that. I prefer it that way. So this way, cool. Okay, so first thing you notice is that React is not using the regular HTML nav. It doesn't mean that HTML elements don't work here, but React has a special way of writing HTML that is more advanced. Okay, so since we copied this from React Bootstrap, they did it the proper React way. So first thing I want us to do is to remove the container. We don't need it. So it's assuming, this container is assuming that we have a file somewhere called container where we wrote some extra HTML code. And in React, you have to import everything. All these things that are underlined, we have to import them. So we have navbar, we have nav, and nav dropdown. Okay. So those are the things we are going to import. So you come to the top here, you say import. Import. You put open and close curly bracelets, and you say import navbar, nav, and nav dropdown from React Bootstrap. So that's how to do that. You save, and when you come back, write down. You notice that all the errors are gone. Okay. So you can go to the page and see. See, it's beautiful. So now there's React Bootstrap. Okay, so there's React Bootstrap here, and there's this drop down. See, with all these other features. So I just wanted to add this so that you will see how to do that in React. And if you click here, you will change it to mobile view. So it's now in mobile view and responsive. I can select anything like iPhone 6. I can select any phone here. Okay. I click here. Good. You see? So it looks like a mobile app now. Alright, let's get to writing the actual HTML that we need. Alright, we just need to create a font. If we come to our code here, just under this navbar, we can create a font, which is the main code that we need. Now, one thing you need to know in React is that React does not work like class names. Okay, so for instance, if I do div class auto container fluid. Okay. So this now, React does not like class. Alright, so in React you have to call it class name. Alright, that's how you do that in React. And every of your properties will be, or attributes, will be capitalized like that. Like if you wanted to do onClick, in regular HTML, you just do onClick. But in React, you will do onClick. You understand? OnClick or something like that. So that's just the difference between React and regular HTML. Alright, so we have created class. We'll now create another class name, div class name equal to row. And next one is main row equal to main row equal to main, and then class name. So since we're using Bootstrap, we're just saying that this should extend to the extreme. If you don't know how to code Bootstrap, basically these are Bootstrap classes that is helping us to design the page. Justify content center means that the content of this div has to be in the center. This one means that it should extend. This div should push to the extreme of the page. Okay. Then next we have div id loader. Remember we wrote some code, class name. We wrote some code in the CSS. Class name. That's simple. Then we have a p tab that says Okay, I can see that I made a mistake somewhere. I've seen that. I wrote above instead of the. I'll fix that shortly. So, text center. Inside it we have loading. Okay, so here I'm just going to click this and then click that, and then here I'll change it to div and change that to div. Okay, good. So the next thing we're going to create is the content under here, div id equal to content. So like I said, if you're wondering where I'm getting this from, you can design yours anyhow. We're just trying to create a form, okay, with a loading, with a text written loading. That's just what we want to create. Okay, so form. Inside the form, we'll have an input with an ID of new post, type equal to text, class name, of the form control. Okay, if you know Bootstrap, you know that this is a class that comes with Bootstrap. Helps to design forms. Placeholder. Okay. Alright. So the next line shall be input type equal to submit, and hidden equal to this. Alright, so the reason why this is red is because there's no equal sign here. Okay, good. That's the end of the form. That's the end of the form. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is the list. This is the end of the form. Now we're going to list we're going to list the posts. As the posts are being created, we're going to list them under the form. So people can add a post at the top, and then at the bottom the list of other posts will be there. So we're going to use another list with ID of post list like that, and class name of. Yeah, I can see that I made a mistake there on styled. Good. Here we change it to class, and we're good. Okay, good. So class name of styled. We do the class name equal to post template. Class name equal to checkbox. Style equal to blue. That's the div for you. And wait. Okay. So there we go. Type here label. Inside the label we have input. I have to space this label. So inside the label we have input. And the input says type. Got a checkbox. Remember, we're going to use checkbox to tell when the block has been read. Okay, span class name equal to content. post content goes here. Okay, so I think we have it sorted out. Now the last thing we want to do after URL tag is another URL that says URL ID button completed post. Blog last name list style self-completed. I think I need to call this red posts. So these are posts that has been read. So
It's 10 o'clock.
yeah. Alright, so exactly like this, and we are good to go. So we're good to go. Notice anything here? Okay, we duplicated this. So first of all, let's remove the styling. We don't really need to hide that. And then one thing we can do is to merge the last name like this. Save. Okay, so we go to refresh just to be sure that everything works well. This complement of a special error somewhere that says 179 reports last name. It says unexpected token. Now let's go find out what that is. Yeah, it says 179 unexpected token. Okay. So there you go. Exactly what we wanted. If I click here, it takes me out of the mobile view and you can see what we want. Now it's not the best design, but it gives us exactly what we want. A post, okay, a way to add a post and a way to submit. Alright, perfect. And then something telling us loading. We're going to hide some, and with your CSS skills you can make this better. For instance, put a space at the top of here, and so on and so forth. Guys, what we're going to do next is to let us create a for loop that will help us to list all the previous posts here. Okay, so let us go to our code and up here, our function. So here we're going to create a for loop. This for loop will help us go to the blockchain and list the posts. So we'll say for, this is normal JavaScript, for var I equal to from 1, which is the first blog post, until I is less than block count, less than or equal to block count. This block count we have here. Okay. Increase I. So if you've ever coded JavaScript, what I'm doing now shouldn't be a magic to you, any sort of magic. So now we have increased I. Make sure that this is semicolon too. Semicolon. Okay, beautiful. Now we're going to say const blog equals to await. So we make a reference to the blog post here. Remember that this blog post is making a call to the smart contract, the ABI. Okay, so we're saying blog post dot methods dot posts. We're making a reference to a method inside what's called inside the blog post. Okay, here's what I mean. inside our smart contract, this post here is the mapping. All right. So if we go to our smart contract in contracts log, so we're trying to use this blog post here to access the mapping here. This is the posts, so that we can every time we pass an ID inside it, it's going to pull up the contents of the post. Okay, so that's basically what we're trying to do. So that's the package. So in smart contract, you can't just retrieve all values, all records once. You have to, for each record you want to retrieve, you have to make a new call to the database. For each record, you make a new call. Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to say this dot set state. Okay, remember what set state is? It's how we kind of save the variables. So we call it posts, and then post is going to be an array, but there's this thing, 3 dots, that is used in JavaScript ES6. Okay, this way. So basically, we're saying save the data. This dot takes an array and breaks down the contents in a serial order. Okay, so if an array contains 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, so instead of using a for loop to print out the values of the array, if you put 3 dots in front of that array, it's going to split them out, split with comma. Okay, I hope you understand. So if there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, whatever numbers in this array, if you put 3 dots, it will be the equivalent of writing out the contents of the array one by one and separating them with comma. So if you put any extra thing here, what is going to be is that extra thing you put will also be part of this array. So we're creating a kind of new array that contains the old array plus a new item. That's what kind of means. So instead of calling this blog, I want to call this post. Remember that it's just a variable I made up. Okay, so basically we're saying make a call to the blockchain. Okay, check one of the methods, find the mapping called post, has a value inside it. That value will be the value of this I. Remember that this is a for loop. So at first, okay, it should be the value of this I and then dot call. So at first, this I value will be actually 2. Alright, because it's starting from 1. So by the time you do I++, it will become 2. So here, we're just saying give us the post at location 2. Alright, and then we save the value here. And why are we saving the value here? Because we want to use it here. So here we're going to initialize it by setting it to something before while the page is just loading. So we're going to say posts will be an empty array initially. So but once the page has loaded and this function has run, posts will now contain the contents of the past posts. Okay, alright. Alright, here we're going to console.log the tasks, console.log the posts, and we're going to say this.state.posts. So let's just be sure that the posts are in there, that this particular function was able to retrieve the posts and save it in post variable. Now the other thing is we have to remove any other console.log here. I don't want too many console.log here. Okay. Alright, we're good. So now let's go to our browser and see what happens. So look at posts in console.log, and if we expand it, so that it works properly. Which is beautiful, isn't it? So posts, I can't zoom this enough, but you can see here that it says ID is 1 and the content is this animating post by the partner. Okay. Alright, so we just have one post in our system yet, so soon we'll be able to add more using this code here. before we continue, I don't like that this is touching the roof, so I want to bring it down just a little. And the way we're going to do it is to come here in our code, right? At the bottom of the nav bar here, we can just put a bootstrap class that adds margin, so we can do margin 5 and save. Another place we can do text loading is here, so that the loading will be on its own row. So I could call it call nd12, so that it will be on its own row. And then the submit button, where is the submit button? Inside forms. This submit button, we can put a class instead of putting. So we can put a class here and say class name equal to. Okay, so here we can do margin top 2. So what it does is that it helps space out things for us. It's still reloading, but I expect some space here and some little adjustment on the screen. So this is easier to work with now. Now the next thing we want to do is to, you see, it's clean now. Next thing we want to do is to list, using a loop, okay, we want to list all the blog posts in our blockchain. So to do that, we're going to just go to our code, and if you look here, you'll see that there is a post template inside this URL tag. So we want for each blog post in our post, we'll print out the content of here and loop again. But this time around, we're not using any for loop, we're just using mapping. Okay, remember I told you mapping is just like a loop. Alright, that's a layman's explanation. So we're going to do this dot state dot posts, okay, dot map. Alright, then we do another one and then say post key. That's basically how you do mapping. If you don't understand mapping, you should go take a quick crash course on JavaScript ES6. Okay, so I'm going to copy this last two and put it here. Oops, put it here. Alright, so it's in between the UL tags. Okay, this is UL, this is UL closing. So it's in between the UL tag. So here, in React, you are required to have, if you are looping through something, you are required to have a new attribute called key. Alright, because React has to uniquely identify each iteration. So demands that you have to have a new attribute called key and then put key like this. Right, so whenever you're using map, you have to have a new attribute called key. Then you put this key here, reflect it here. That's React for you. Alright, here again, we're going to then print the content of the task. So we do the post, it's a post dot content. Okay. Alright. So this dot state dot posts, that's exactly what we printed out with console.log just a short while earlier. So we look at it here. This post has the list of has the post struct details. That's why we initialized it as an array, empty array. We already have it here. This posts. So that's what we're trying to print the content in the HTML. Okay. So now we've done this. Let us see what it looks like. You see, the first post has already been printed. So this is an emergent post by the partner. Now, one thing you quickly notice is that there is a problem here. I don't think I have enough closing brackets. So let's cross check what I have. So here, the first bracket opens, last bracket closes. First open and last open. So something. Okay, yeah. Now I see the issue. We can do return. Okay, here we can do return so that it prints HTML. That's just React's way of doing things. And what else am I missing? Before the return, there has to be an open bracelet, then close bracelet. So in React, it's not advisable to just write HTML anyhow. So you have to print out the HTML using, or spit it out. Instead of, like in PHP, it's going to be echo, right? This is how React does their own thing. And as you can see, the errors are gone now. So if we come here, this page is reloading, but once it reloads, this should be gone too. So this is how we print out all the data. Alright. Meanwhile, I found the culprit. Something my eyes didn't see are these two columns, these two items in my code. I've deleted them. So the code is just supposed to be like this exactly. Okay. So if I want to make it a little neater, it's gonna be like this. I like this, and move to the right, 2, 3, 4. Okay, something like this. Something like this is super cool. So this is how you do a loop. Once you're getting the information from a database, you just use mapping. Okay, and remember that in React, this is very important. React needs to individually and uniquely identify each iteration, so you have to have a key, right? Okay, so congratulations on getting to this point. Now the next point is going to be about creating the information and passing it to the blockchain to save. Also being able to tick off some things in the blockchain. Guys, how are you doing? So I restarted my system, and I just wanted to show you the process of reconnecting everything in case your system goes off while learning this tutorial. This is how to reconnect every thing and make it work again. So the first one is to navigate to your folder, your app folder, and then run npm start. npm start. Now, if you run into any errors using npm start, remember to set the correct node version. This is the node version I'm using, node v. Okay, 14, and this is how to set the node version. As long as you installed node version manager, you do nvm use 14. Okay, I'm using 14 now. In the future, just backtrack twice. Alright. Because every time you restart your system, your command line might go to the default node version, which is the latest one that you have installed. So now we are sure we're in the right node version. What you're going to do is npm start. So, but quickly, let me show you nvm use 17. Let me show you what happens if you're using the wrong node version, a node version that is too soon, too recent. So if we do npm start, this is what's going to happen. You see, error. npm start gives us error because of the node version, and you're never going to see it here, the cause of the error. So what the correct thing to do is node version manager use 14 or 15, any version that is lower than the recent. Okay, if you want to install another version of node, you do nvm install, then you mention the version, for instance 16, hit enter. Okay, so now we're going to just start our app, npm start, and within a few seconds it's going to spin up an instance of our app. So this is our app that we're working on, and as you can see, it's fine. If I want to return to the other view, I'll click inspect, right click inspect element. Okay, I think you're more familiar with this view. Then I click on console, and then I can see all this. Now another thing is we need to connect correctly. So this is supposed to pull up some MetaMask for us. One thing I can do is to refresh. I've already connected it to MetaMask. That's why it didn't give me the MetaMask pop-up. But usually if you restart your system and you visit this page, because of the code we've written in it, it will force you to open MetaMask. So we click here, I've already done it, that's why the MetaMask pop-up did not show. So now it's back because I just clicked on it. What is notice is that all the ETH we had is gone. Okay, we're still on Ganache database, and but all the ETH is gone. So what do? We first of all add new ETH. So you click like this. Look at all the ETH we had. Why did it go? Because in Ganache, every time you restart Ganache, it creates brand new keys for you and spins up a whole new database. You see, different addresses from the previous ones we used. So every time you restart Ganache, it gives you, it wipes its memory, gives you brand new keys to work with. So what we're going to do here is to repeat the process. Click this key, copy this, and copy. Okay, done. Then we get back to MetaMask. So right here in MetaMask, we click this and import account. So import account, import. Now we have 100 ETH. Okay, so good. Now take note of this too. The address, I'm gonna copy it. So if we refresh, now because Ganache is now a brand new what do you call it? The database is reset, or the blockchain is reset. We have to deploy this app again to the blockchain. Remember how we deploy it? We open it in Truffle. We open it in our command prompt. So here and there. So I can do. I prefer to write from inside VS Code. So I open VS Code from here. First of all, I want to play this. Play. So open VS Code. Code. Okay, so here we are. Then I will go to the command prompt because I prefer the VS Code command prompt. Click here and select terminal. So right here, we're going to do Truffle migrate. I think the migration has already been done, but we're going to do it anyway. Truffle migrate. Or Truffle compile first. If we run Truffle compile, it will attempt Truffle migrate first. So Truffle compile, hit enter. Usually this takes a few seconds. After a few seconds, we'll see what's up. So that's done. We're going to go for Truffle migrate. Migration is done now, and it cost us this number of ETH. So which means if we go back to our Ganache, we'll see that our ETH has reduced. Okay, transaction count is now 4. All right. Okay, so one good thing we have to do is to copy the contract address. This is the address of where this contract was deployed now. Okay. So if you compare this contract address, which is ends with 2FF, all right, or X3 2FF. If you compare it with what you have here in Ganache, you see that it's not the same. Okay, you see it's not the same. So I just wanted you to note that. So now we have it. We have to go to our config.js. Remember config.js? Let me put this down. Go to config.js, and this address here we'll have to replace. Okay, Control paste. Good. And save. Alright, so here we can then reload. The moment I saved it, you see, it was able to connect to that database and retrieve this for me. Okay, So, and you see, it can now fetch the post results. So if you're taking this tutorial, in case you run into any problem anytime, this is exactly how to reconnect everything. Okay. Now, if you ask, would you do this? Let's say your app is live. Is this what's going to happen every time that your app goes off on your user's phone? No. The answer is no, because once you deploy to live Ethereum blockchain, it doesn't go off again. It stays there forever. Okay. So the reason we have to do all these reconnections is because Ganache spins up new instances every time we restart Ganache. If I close this again, I have to do everything all over again. Okay. All right. Now let's write some code here to add more, make this work, add more blog posts, and more importantly, we have to hide this and make it show only occasionally. So let's go to our app.js and we'll look for what we have to hide. Now the thing is, in React, you can put some aspects of your page or some portions of your page in another file and then simply make reference to them. Example, navbar. Okay, this navbar you see here is another code entirely, okay, coming from another page. As you can see, the code is coming from another page, but once you do something like you write it this way, React will know, then you have to import it and mention the page is coming from or the file is coming from. We're going to do that with the loading aspects of this page, okay, where we have loading here. So we're going to take out the whole content, put in a whole new different page. All right. So let's start with the loading. So this loading you see here, we want it to only happen when the page is trying to retrieve data from the blockchain. So we set it here. So let me make this easy to read. So this and this and this. So it's now easier to read. So here I put comma and put a variable loading and set it to true by default. So now we have loading by default true. Now the next thing is, once this for loop has finished loading, instead of first printing console.log, we're going to print this.setState, and then we set loading to false. All right. So false means that we have already concluded our work in the database in the blockchain, and that's false. But when the page opens, it should show loading instead. Okay. So which means somewhere here we have to be able to reflect this. Okay. So instead of just typing loading, we're just going to reflect the value of this dot state loading. This whole content, we want it out in another page altogether. Okay. So this is how React handles it. So first of all, just to be sure of what I'm picking, I'll click this and then I'll copy everything. I'll create a new file here. Let's call it blog posts. Okay, .js. And then inside that file, we do the normal React thing, import. It's a regular React file. Okay, do import React, and then let's just be sure how React handled this. Okay. Blog post. Okay, good. Import React component from React. So if there's any error, it's going to show us. Okay, so here we go class blog post. Remember to always make sure that the class is the same name with the file. Extends react.component. So this way, then you do a render this way. Now we can paste the HTML. There we go, all the HTML. So different versions of React have different ways that you can import this, different versions. Okay, so now we have to export it to, at the bottom here, we have to do export. Okay, default, the name of the app, blog posts. If you don't export it, that means you can't import it into another file. Alright, so here requires a comma. There's a little bug here. If you place your mouse here, it says your render method should have a return statement. That's because we forgot to put return. All your HTML should then be inside this return. Where is it? Return. And we put this here. Save. So we're good now. See, all the errors are gone, and this is just warning me of excess white space. Okay. I think also you don't really have to import components, but in this version of React, but in other versions you can do that. So nothing really wrong if you don't do that. Now here we're still in blog post.js. We exported blog posts. So let's go import it. All right. So get back to app.js. I'm copying it here. App.js, and at the top of the file we can say import blog posts. Oops. No, I pasted the wrong thing. So import blog posts from which file? We are talking about the file that is called blog posts. That's it. So now we've imported it. This underline means that we've not used it, but we've imported it. So now we've imported it, we can go to where we really need it, which is here, and we can do the same thing this way. All right. So this alone will quickly go to blog posts and get the content of the return function and paste it into app.js whenever we are loading the app.js page. Now there's a problem, something else we still have to do. If you look into this code, you'll see that somewhere here we did post.content. Okay, this.state.post.content. So and we don't have any state variable. We didn't do any set state here. So somehow from app.js we need to pass in the value of that state. Now just to show you what I mean, let's look at this page when it's running. You see that it's throwing an error. It says cannot read properties of null. Okay, and what's the null? The post here. This.state.posts. Okay, inside blog posts.js. It doesn't understand this because we did not do set state. So we're going to use something else called props. So in React you have state and props. So when you want to pass a value into another component, you have to use props. Okay, so here we have blog posts. One thing we can do is to come here. We still have to change this. I made a mistake here, but we'll come back. We have to change this to loading. All right, loading. We'll come back and make it conditional. All right. So, but here we're going to look for the posts. Okay. So up here we have posts. All right. So we can come here and say posts equal sign this.state.posts. Okay, so this is how to pass a variable into another component. So we're taking this.state.post and passing it into the blog post component as posts variable. So if we now go into blog post component, we don't have to use this.state, all right, because we didn't declare set state, but we can call it props. Let's say this.state.props. Okay, and let's check. See, it works well now. And do we have any errors? So far so good. These are previous errors. We can reset, what do you call it, reload to, but there are no errors. Okay, good, we're clean. So guys, here, let's go. Okay, we can say we want to display this loading optionally, and then display this one if the loading is not true. Okay, so the loading is true when app is trying to retrieve information from the blockchain or pass information from the blockchain. So say this.state loading. Now, in case this is a ternary operator, so we're going to say if this.state.loading is true, then do what? So what does it do? It does this. So displays this if it is true. What if it is false? Okay, if it is false, then we can display this. So just for clarity in the coding, I would like to place this here. Not that there's anything though. Okay, so basically what we're saying is this is a ternary operator. If you don't know what a ternary operator is, then you've not been coding JavaScript or anything like that. So any programmer should know what it is. Basically, it's saying that if this is true, this is an if statement. Saying if this is true, that's what the question mark says. Anything before the question mark, if it is true, then run the code after the question mark. And there's a colon that says run this other one if it is false. Okay. So this way, our code displays only when this.state.loading is true. So if you come here, say this.states, okay, .loading. By default, it is true. So whenever the page loads the first time, what you're going to see is loading, all right? And once it connects to the database and boom, the loading disappears, then the rest of the content shows up. So it shows up, okay? All right, I'm just trying to remove all these red lines. My IDE kind of warns me when there are excess space in my code. So there we go. Let's go look at the form and make it work. So here we have blog posts. So in this form, remember that here we put hidden equal to empty space. So we want to hide the submit button. This submit button, we want to hide it initially, all right? So we come to our code and we say hidden equal to true. So initially hidden. And as I save it, as it's reloading, it's going to go, all right? Then secondly, while it's reloading, we have to do something else, which is in the form here, we have to include an onSubmit handler, all right? And so that when this submit button is clicked, the form will do something. So what does it do? In normal JavaScript, you will do onSubmit, right? OnSubmit. But in React, you have to do onSubmit with the capital letter. Okay, this shows capital letter. On submit, what happens? So this is a normal React code. So what happens is that there is this, and then there is an event, and then you say what happens in the event. So first of all, we want to prevent default action, because when a form is submitted, by default there's an action probably to reload the page or something. All right, we want to prevent that from happening so that we can use our own function and work it out. Okay, so here we can say this.props create our post. Okay, we still have to make this create post work, and then the value we are passing into it is this.post.value. Okay, and we're trying to pass the value of this, all right, this into it. So to make it work, we have to use something in React called ref. Okay, so I'm going to include an attribute. This is the input box. Okay, an attribute that is called ref in React. So this is how it's done. You just do curly bracelets, you do input, and then you do this this dot post equal to input. Okay, so this is how you tell this form this is what it should do. This create task, this is the value, and there you go. All right. This create post doesn't exist though. All right, we've not created this function. So, but for us to create it, let's create it at an upper level inside the app.js. Okay, so if we go to the app.js at the upper level here, we can create it. So we have the constructor here. I need to move this. Okay, so it will be easy to figure out what's going on. First of all, I'm just trying to indent and make my code look good. Okay. So first of all, we made a call to the smart contract called we call it blog post. Okay. So we're gonna create a task here. Let's say anyway, it's okay. Create post. Okay. So what is this create post we have here? This create post is the function that we just created here. We say when this form is submitted, this create post function should run and pick up the value that was entered into the input box. Okay, so we're now coming here to create the function for create post, and first of all we need to take the value that was entered in the input box, and then we do the first thing, which is this dot set state. Okay, we want to set loading to true so that it will start loading true. So it will start showing loading, you know, while we try to connect to the blockchain. So to connect to the blockchain, we say this dot state dot. Now we're referring to this blog post that made a connection. All right, this blog post made a connection. All right, so we said this dot set state blog post. Now we have access to it, and what it is basically making a connection to the smart contract. Now once we establish that connection with the smart contract, now we have access to the methods, the functions inside that smart contract. And which function are we talking about? We look for the function that helps us create a post. And as you can see, this is helping me to pick up the functions there. But let's go to the smart contract itself. Look at it, blog.sol. If we come here, we'll see that here we have a create post function. So we're trying to use that dot to access this create post function. Remember that this function accepts one parameter, which is a string, which is whatever that was entered in the post. Okay, so what do? We come back to app.js. So we access the create post methods dot create post. So this is how you enter into a blockchain and into your smart contract and access a function inside it. Okay. So what are we passing there? Remember that function accepts a string, and we are passing in the string we took from the form. Okay. And then we did send. So send is the function. Remember that there's a call. There's a place we did call, right? Call is when you want to retrieve information, and send is when you want to send information. Okay. I'm trying to use my eyes to find out why we did the call. Except we've deleted it. Look at it here. Alright. Or we're trying to retrieve the number of blog posts, the blog counts. We did a call. We're just trying to read information. But here we're trying to send information or push information. So we'll call it send. Then we enter a curly bracelet. Then we'll say from this dot state dot account. Okay. And then we say dot once. If you have quoted Firebase, you should already know this, that this request will be done once. Which account are we talking about? This account. If we come here, say that we have accounts. Remember that this line helps us to connect to MetaMask and retrieve the current account of the person. When we printed it, we have the address, the Ethereum address of the person currently connected. Okay. So we said we are trying to connect to this smart contract, okay, with this address, and we want to make a connection once, okay, and that once receive something, call it receipt, okay, and then we put a comma and say receipt. Hope I'm spelling receipt correctly. Okay, it's supposed to be inside this so that we can use the arrow, the fat arrow. Okay, and then we say this. Okay, so with this we put this say this dot set state. We have to set state, return the loading, right? Because initially we said that loading is true, so we do set state, do loading, set it to false. So we are only setting it to false after there has been a receipt. Okay, we have made a call to the blockchain, we send something to the blockchain. Once it responds to us, immediately we change the status of the loading. So I lost one bracket here, and we'll have to call this false. What's wrong with my fingers? False. Okay, beautiful. Alright, we've done this. According to React, if we want to be able to bind this function to this particular blog post, okay, we have to pass it into the constructor and say, now we're referring to this function now. So this dot create task, create post, okay, equal to this dot create post dot bind. This is just a React syntax. This. Okay, now which means at the bottom here we can then use it. What we're trying to do is we're trying to pass this function. Alright, we want this function to be passed into the child component. The child component is the blog post. It's the blog post that needs the function. Okay, so to pass it in, we just need to make sure we define it inside the constructor. Alright, and then once we have assigned it there, we can now come to the child component, give some space, and say create post. That's the name we want it to be in the new inside this component. We want it to be create post. Okay, and then I'll say this dot create post. This dot create post. Okay. Now we could have easily named this function anything here. This function in this file, we could call it anything we want. All right. But at the end of the day, whenever we want to pass it, we must use this create post because inside blog posts, that's what it is called. This file knows it as create post. Okay, so that's how to pass variables in React. I think I missed something here. This way. Good. Coming back to our app, let's test to see whether it works. So here we're going to see let's send a blog post and make sure that your system is connected with the MetaMask and all. So because it's going to pull up MetaMask and ask us for each blog post we want to send, it's going to ask us to pay because every transaction on the blockchain involves payment. If you want to insert something, you have to pay. Okay, it's only when you want to read that you spend anything. So here we're going to say Eze goes to school. Enter. I've hit enter on my keyboard. See what's happening here. Okay. Hopefully everything goes well. So first of all, we want to be able to refresh this list without refreshing the page. So we'll go here, go to app.js, just make a little modification, and that is here. So after we have done loading equal to false, alright, so here we can say this dot, we call this function here connect to blockchain. Okay, so connect to blockchain. So we'll call it again this dot connect to blockchain. So that after every time we submit a post to the blockchain, it comes back and refreshes. Okay. Also have to do a little modification on the set states. So for now, we just set loading, but we have to also reset every other thing. For instance, posts, we have to also set it to array. Okay. We also have to set block count. Okay, block count, set it to 0. And what else? I think those are the things we need to just set. Alright, these are the things we just reset now. Okay, let's try it just one more time. Hit enter. Boom. Okay, cool so far. Let's try filling the form again. Make sure that your command prompt has reloaded the page. This is a mistake many people make. This particular command prompt might be slow in reloading the page. So you might be seeing an older version of your page and wondering why your code is not working. Okay. So what you do is you come here. If you try it and it's not working, just come here and do Command C or Control C to end this and run npm start all over again. Okay, in your command prompt so that your app will restart. And now I actually type something. Let's say task 1, go title, go online and become whatever, become the president. Hit enter. Okay, there's an older version of our app running, alright? But the most important thing is I have to refresh. As you can see, it's popped up MetaMask, alright? And MetaMask is asking us that there's a gas fee. We have to pay for trying to insert something into the blockchain. Okay? And this is the total we are going to pay. To confirm, then the transaction will go through. But first of all, I want to fix something. Alright, so I'll refresh this page. I want to make sure that my home command line, Control C, Control C. Okay, I want to run npm start all over again so that I'm sure that I'm working on the latest version of my app. Okay, and there we go. So it's still loading. As you can see, it's still loading. So once it's done loading here, now we can start. Here we go. Okay, so enter an information, hit enter, and it pops up MetaMask, interestingly, and it's asking us, giving us an estimate of how much it will cost us to put the task, and it says, okay, look at here, it's create post that is calling this function, okay, it's trying to insert something into the database, and look at how much it's going to cost you. What do you think? Confirm? Say yeah, confirm. Then boom, see it appears here. So we've inserted our first text into the database. Let's try something. Let's try a single character, say T. Okay, hit enter. Now that we have T, let's check the gas fee. Okay, and here is the gas fee. I want you to note it. 0.223748. That's the gas fee. Okay, the total is 0.223748. Entered one character. So what if we enter a long character? The quick brown fox jumps over a lazy dog. Then we copy it many times and we do it. I think this is just 150 characters max. Okay, so hit enter. Alternatively, what you can do is to create a text area. You see that it costs more F. You see, the more characters you type in, the more costly it will become. So the quantity of data you want to insert into the blockchain is going to cost you more. So whenever you're writing your smart contract, as I taught you during the smart contract time, that when you're writing your smart contract, you have to make sure that you enter as little text as possible, because any slight text you are entering in terms of string will cost you more. Alright, so that's why some people will not even use string, they'll use character as a data type instead of string. So the longer the information we enter, the more it's going to cost us. So MetaMask is going to take from our account. And if you're wondering where we're getting the money we're using, look at this. Okay, so we entered more, so it cost us more. So if you're wondering how we're getting the money we're using, alright, we're getting it from our MetaMask account. If you remember, MetaMask that we synced. So MetaMask, we had 99 ETH. Now we got it from Ganache. Alright, we got key from Ganache, and it's counting how many transactions we've done on this. So we got the key from Ganache and we synced it to MetaMask. That's what we did in the previous video, just about 20-30 minutes ago. Okay, so basically this is how to do a CRUD on React. The only other thing we can do is to check off this as mark them as red, okay, so that when we fill up this button, then something is going to happen on the blockchain to color off this. Okay.